Mhm.
And also let me make Lisa and Connie co-hosts. Sorry, I should have done it earlier. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of ANC 34G, and this is our regular meeting, the second Monday of February. We meet on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. And I represent the single member district that is ANC 34G03. And that's basically the area between Utah and Nebraska and Broad Branch. So we'll begin by introducing the other commissioners, and first begin with you, Chaz.
And my name is Charles Cadwell. I'm the new commissioner from 34G07, which is on the southwest corner of the ANC, bordered basically by Reno military and coming east on Kanawha and then Jocelyn to Nevada and then back across Nebraska.
Connie.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Chang, Connie Chang, and my single member district is 05, which is east on Connecticut Avenue where the community center and public library is. You hook around on Western, come back down on Broad Branch Road, and then it hooks inside between Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway, and then down to Jocelyn. So we all abut each other, both Charles and Commissioner Cadwell and Commissioner Gosselin and I.
And Peter.
I'm Peter Gosselin, District 6, which is basically the west side of Connecticut from to 41st, the Western Avenue border with Maryland, and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military with the peninsula to the east. Welcome, everyone.
John.
I'm John Higgins, and I'm in single member district 02. My district encompasses from north to south from Military to about Aberfoyle, and from east to west from Oregon to Utah.
Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01. My district is Hawthorne, portions of Barnaby Woods, and covers down Western, Oregon, Beach, Pinehurst tributary, and a little past down Utah and back around.
Michael.
I'm Michael Zeldin. I'm 34G04, which is Lafayette Elementary over to Western, bounded by Utah and some other street.
Okay.
Broad Branch. Sorry. Long day.
Now I don't feel bad.
Okay. Well, we have 7 commissioners, and so we have a quorum and can conduct business tonight. And happy Valentine's Day to everyone. We're meeting as always, or it seems like always now, virtually, and we will continue to do that for the foreseeable future, it looks like. But we're trying to keep the meeting as orderly as possible while at the same time letting people participate. So if your name on the participants list is not accurately reflected, please click on that so you can change your name so that we can know exactly who you are and who's here. The commissioners will have audio and video throughout the meeting, but during the meeting, we will recognize various people who are participating, making presentations or asking questions or whatever. And we will recognize them and make them a panelist so that they will have audio and video as well. During the meeting, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And if you have comments, please put them in the chat so that we can distinguish those two. And we'll try to get to the questions if we can during the meeting. If we can't get to them, we'll preserve them and we'll try to answer them in writing at a later point. And as you noted at the very beginning of the meeting is being recorded, and the video of our meeting will be on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. Okay, the first thing we need to do is adopt our agenda, which has been posted on the various websites, our listservs, and on our website and through other social media. And the only change I have to the draft agenda that was circulated is Commissioner Goslin has a letter that he would like for us to consider on the old American City Diner space, and we'll consider that at the end of the regular agenda, if that's okay. Peter, is that all right?
Fine with me.
Okay. Okay. All right. With that modification to the agenda, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, raise your hand, please. 7-0. Okay, thank you. All right, I have a few announcements. The first is with regard to ANC redistricting. The Ward 4, each ward has its own redistricting task force consisting of a number of representatives from all over the ward. And the Ward 4 redistricting task force met on February 6th to hear testimony from the community about big picture issues on the ANC boundaries for Ward 4. And former commissioner from ANC 34G05, Jerry Mallett, who is also the chair of the Ward 3 redistricting task force, he and I both testified at that hearing that the Ward 4 redistricting task force had last week. And our testimonies were quite similar. We basically said, keep ANC 34G and the neighborhoods that are included in that together. And he said that the Ward 3 task force had already voted to that effect. There were no questions from any of the Ward 4 task members to Jerry or me about our testimony. And Commissioner Clayman, former Commissioner Clayman, who is also on that Ward 4 redistricting task force, wrote me that he had heard from no one on that task force who had suggested any changes to our boundaries, basically. Commissioner Mallett's, or former Commissioner Mallett's, also mentioned that there are two possible changes to SMD boundaries in our area. The first would be for my single member district, ANC 34G03, which currently spills over from Ward 4 into Ward 3 and has about 260 people from Ward 3, so they probably will be able to be moved into another Ward 3 SMD, so that we won't have an SMD that covers two wards. He also said that there may be enough population growth in our area to warrant going to 8 single member districts, so that we would have 8 commissioners. We do expect to have presentations from the Ward 3 and Ward 4 task forces at a meeting either on February 28th or March 14th. And all of the task force meetings, which they meet basically every week, they are open to the public, and there's information on the websites for both of those task forces if you want to search for those. Next, there was a roundtable hearing before the council's committee that oversees the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions on February 8th. And the reason for this roundtable was to gather information about what the OANC, the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, could do to support ANCs better. And the council member said that ANCs are now at an inflection point. And that's a result of two things, really. The first is that there are going to be 40 to 50 new commissioners next year because of the population growth in the city. And that's going to mean a lot of new commissioners who are going to need training, going to need to be brought up to speed. And also the increase in the technology that we're all using, both through the Zoom meetings, which may become hybrid meetings at some point, and a lot of other technology that really requires the OANC to step up its game a bit. And so he has asked everyone to contribute ideas about what the strategic plan should be for this, for the agency and its new executive director, which is supposed to be selected soon. There were a number of commissioners who testified about various aspects of the strategic plan. And there's a video of that 2.25-hour hearing. If you'd like to watch it, it's on the council's website. It was a very productive meeting, we thought. Next, the Ward 3 COVID Center is now open. It was the last of the Ward COVID centers to open. It's in the Chevy Chase Pavilion at 5335 Wisconsin Avenue. And the hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 10 to 8, and Friday and Sunday from 9 to 7, and Thursday from 11 to 9. And it's closed on Tuesdays. But all of the COVID centers have access to vaccinations, boosters, take-home rapid antigen tests, PCR tests, and KN95 masks. So you might stop by there if you need any of those services.
Randy,
Finally, yes, Lisa.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the hours for, you said Monday, Wednesday, what's Friday?
Friday is 9 to 7,
Thank you.
9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
The fiscal year 2023 budget is about to come out from the mayor. It's going to be very early this year on March 16th. The mayor is supposed to deliver that to the council. That's about a month earlier than normal. And the council then begins its public hearings on the budget on March 21st, just a few days later. And it's scheduled to conclude on April 7th. Again, very, very compressed schedule this year, looking at the budget in a very short time period. The council has the schedule that's posted on its website. You can just look for the schedule for the budget hearings. And our commission has in the past testified at many of those budget hearings, and we would expect to do so again this year. And we'll be considering testimony that we would file there at our March 14th and our March 28th meetings. And if you've got any ideas about areas you would like us to cover on the budget, please let us know. Okay, those are all the announcements I have. Other commissioners have announcements? Peter.
I want to just point out two traffic issues. We had another accident at the intersection of Military Road and Chevy Chase Parkway this Saturday. That's a big disappointment because we had hoped that these, it's a disappointment because we'd hoped that the measures that we've helped get in place would solve the problem. They haven't solved the problem. They have certainly reduced the problem. Commissioner Chang has made a suggestion about this intersection, which is the border between our two SMDs, that I think not at this meeting, but that we ought to consider and ought to encourage DDOT, the city's transportation department, to consider, which is a don't block the box marking of the intersection, including pavement markings, which would have the effect, could have the effect of slowing traffic on Military Road, which has no stop signs now at that intersection. Secondly, a separate matter, but we're not going to consider it here. I just want to point out to you there was another accident and we've noticed it and we're going to try to do something about it. I hope we try to do something about it. The other thing I would just point out to you is that sometime after 5 o'clock today, there was an accident on Connecticut Avenue at Morrison Street. And for people who are advocating protected bike lanes and therefore a 4-lane vehicle lane Connecticut Avenue, this is a good example of how 4 vehicle lanes, 2 outgoing lanes, what they look like. I would just commend to you the fact that the backup went, it looked like it went back to Nebraska, just saying.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Michael?
Well, just want to say 2 things about what Peter just said. One is, with respect to Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road, in our testimony on DDOT, we point this out and make mention of the possibility that there will be a blocking, one of those don't block the box things in it, as well as other suggestions. Second, Peter, I just want to say that an accident delays traffic very different than free-flowing traffic, and to try to say that somehow an accident will be an indicator of what 2 lanes, I think you should rethink that comment. It was a little bit gratuitous.
Fair enough. Let me just point out the reason I raised it this way is that what happened was that it was in the eastbound lane, and police cars blocked on either side. So what got closed down was one lane. It actually did not close down any other lane. So in that regard, you had a kind of a model, but I absolutely, accidents and flashing lights are different than protected bike lanes.
Thank you. The announcement that I wanted to make, though, Randy, is that I have for the last year been working with DDOT as best as one can work with DDOT to try to slow traffic around Lafayette Elementary School. And we've been considering additional signage, children at play, and the like, multiple speed humps around the perimeter, risers at each stop sign so that you actually have to stop rather than make a rolling stop. And I would like to post on our web page the fact that we are engaged in this process and try to get community input as to whether or not they find any of these things desirable or objectionable. So I sent it to you, Peter, the announcement, so you can you have it in writing and you can post it. And I think it would be helpful to slow down traffic around that perimeter, but it's going to take some effort on the part of the community to accomplish that.
Michael, did you want it to be on the website as a link to some survey? Is that what you're thinking of?
We don't
where
have
they
a
can
survey.
check a
I've just
box?
asked,
Or
well, I've just
what is
asked
it that
for
you're
people to
thinking?
send an email saying what their thoughts are, but I'll talk to you, Connie, offline to see if there's a better way of soliciting community.
Okay, let's figure
input.
that out. Because there is a TSI on Broad Branch Road that I've been working with DDOT on, and they've done a traffic study now, and they're looking at further designs of whether or not that's necessary to slow down traffic. I mean, we have a lot of these issues right around the school area. I mean,
That's
all
right.
around where we are, going to Lafayette, coming from, and going to Deal and Wilson, with the lack of sidewalks along Chevy Chase Parkway. There's several of these issues, and we've got to get a handle on it with DDOT. And of course, other boards have issues too, but we have to keep pressing, I think, to make it work. Because I did see the bus come through 2 years ago where it ran over a kid, and that it went over, like the kid was under the bus, and that's very alarming. And we can't have that again.
Right, and my work has been not so much focused on Broad Branch because I know you got that covered more, but rather the perimeter, the named streets, 33rd Street, 32nd, all the feeder streets into it. And the issue of speed humps on the perimeter, speed humps are always loved by some and hated by others. So I just want to see if I can get a pulse of the community about whether they'd be happy to have speed humps to slow traffic around that Lafayette perimeter.
Michael, one of the things I would suggest is also with that posting, I think it's a great idea to post it on the website. And I would encourage you also to post, I think it's Councilmember Brianne Nadeau's recent proposed legislation on improving infrastructure in and around schools so that the community can see what is in the pipe from the council. I think that'll help them a lot. And you're right, I'm also working on a TSI from a feeder street that leads to Lafayette. So, and one of the things that I asked DDOT, was about that proposed legislation and if we could expand it, because I believe it's within a certain distance to the school. I personally believe we need to expand it a little bit out, just for what you said. We have a lot of kids that take side streets to the school, and those streets need to be safe as well too.
Yeah, in fact, to that exact point, I asked for signage, those yellow signs with kids at play or slow kids. And they said they would think about it for like 33rd, which is right up against the school. But they said 32nd was too far away. And I said, you've got to be out of your mind. 32nd Street feeds to 33rd, which gets you to Lafayette. So it's okay to speed 1 block from the school, but not 2. So anyway, this is what we need to work on. And so Lisa and Connie and I, maybe we can all meet afterwards and figure out what the best way to gauge community sentiment about this is.
Yes.
And
maybe
we can have, I really think a lot of our DDOT issues warrant, and I don't want to belabor, but warrant a special meeting. and maybe the Lafayette issue does. Maybe we could just, hold something for the community, invite DDOT, and see if we can get something together on this sooner
Yeah.
than later.
That's a
And
good idea.
And I am writing testimony for the oversight for DCPS. And while this is not exactly, this issue is mentioned in the DDOT testimony, but maybe in conjunction with the LSAT, we can come up with something for the DCPS testimony, like make our schools safer stuff.
Yeah, we should definitely put forward a resolution as other ANCs have on the walk to school legislation, and there's another one. So we should bring that up. Today's agenda is packed, but I think we should figure out how to do it for the next, because this is a very, very important issue.
Okay, that's all I have.
John, did you have an announcement about Maret ECC?
Yes, I guess I can provide a little update in the form of an announcement. And this is regards the proposal to convert the property behind the Episcopal Children's Center to an athletic field. Our ANC continues to be involved in the zoning adjustment process for the conversion of the property behind the Episcopal Children's Center on Utah. On February 16th, the ANC will hold a virtual meeting on the project with several DC government agencies involved in the project, namely DDOT, Urban Forestry, and DOEE. These are mainly for updating the commissioners with chat questions as time permits. On February 24th, the commission will hold a special meeting exclusively on the project for discussion and possible adoption of a resolution, excuse me, of the commission's position on the project. On March 9th, the Board of Zoning Adjustment will conduct a public hearing on the zoning application, and the ANC will be a party to that, along with a group called Friends of the Field, which is filed with the BZA in opposition to the zoning exemption required for the conversion of the property to a sports field. ANC 3G has been meeting with an advisory group to continue to contribute to a possible agreement to mitigate impacts of the conversion where possible and to govern the construction of the field if approved by the BZA. The group inquired as to whether Maret was amenable to a partial agreement of some issues which could then be excluded from the BZA process. ANC 3G encouraged each party to respond to a draft of such an agreement by Friday, February 11th, in time for resolving any differences which could be reflected in Maret's final version of its application, which is due to the BZA on February 16th. To date, Maret has provided its views of the draft to the ANC, which in any case will endeavor to pursue such an agreement in the interest of the community. One aspect of the project, the public space permit, otherwise known as a curb cut application, will be discussed at tonight's meeting. So that's our update for that issue. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, are there community announcements? I see Amir is here and D. Smith is here. If you'd raise your hand, if you would like to, anyone has any community announcements?
Yeah, Amir, I think, wants to be
Amir?
elevated.
Let me remind people making community announcements, Amir is good at this, but let me remind anybody making community announcements to provide me text of what they said either before the meeting, text of what they're going to say before the meeting, or what they said after the meeting, so I can include it in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, Amir.
All right. Thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. For those who don't know me, my name is Amir Garavantab. I'm one of Mayor Bowser's Ward 3 liaisons, here to provide some updates from the city government. Starting with COVID news, today Mayor Bowser actually led a major press conference on the situational update regarding where we are with COVID right now. So with the end of the limited public health emergency related to the winter Omicron surge, the vaccine mandate known as VaxDC will be lifted tomorrow, meaning businesses will no longer be required to verify if their patrons are vaccinated. The mask mandate will also be lifted at the end of February, but businesses are still free to require masks and vaccine status for patrons, and masks will still be required in schools, libraries, childcare facilities, congregate facilities like shelters, nursing homes, and dorms, public transit and rideshare vehicles, healthcare and medical facilities, and finally, DC government offices with public interaction, such as DMV and DHS. DC Health would also like to stress the importance of getting your booster shot. Boosters can increase your immunity above even what the current 2 doses provide, especially with variants like Omicron evading the previous vaccinations. If it has been 6 months since you were fully vaccinated, it is highly recommended that you receive your booster dose. Thanks to Commissioner Speck for bringing up the fact that Ward 3 has opened up the last COVID center. Yes, that's true. That's very big. So we have COVID centers in all 8 wards, open 6 days a week now, with the final one here at Chevy Chase Pavilion. Another reminder for business owners, this is unrelated to COVID, somewhat related to COVID, the Bridge Fund, which is again run by the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, is still accepting applications until next week, February 25th. And the Bridge Fund is a rehabilitation fund for businesses that have been struggling financially since COVID began. I'm going to post a link in the chat with more details, but there's certain criteria that can give you a leg up on the application based on if you employ DC residents and how low your revenue was in the past 3 years. Moving on to another important update is budget season. As said before, we are in the budget season and the budget is currently being crafted, and part of the process involves the public input, which since COVID began is being done in a virtual teletown hall style. And this year we actually had 2 teletown halls. We had a seniors only teletown hall held last week, and it was a great success. We had a large amount of RSVPs and a large amount of viewers. And not only is it just like a presentation from the mayor and her administration on what the plan is, it also has an opportunity for speakers to answer or ask their questions in a live format by calling in and having their call screened and then spoken in front of the presentation as if it were a radio show. So same process goes. We have the district-wide budget town hall happening this Wednesday at 6 p.m. I highly recommend everyone here, commissioners, residents, to tune in. You can tune in on a webinar format on social media like Twitter, DC Channel 16, or dial the phone. It's easiest to access it at budget.dc.gov. I'll put that in the chat as well. But yeah, definitely recommend going there and getting your questions in. With that rate, I can also take any questions from commissioners and residents on anything that I just announced.
Okay, Michael?
Hey, Amir, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is there a rule on whether parent volunteers can come now to Lafayette?
Without a mask, or what do you mean?
Just period. I thought they were not allowing volunteers in.
So I'm not familiar with, I'm not sure if it's a Lafayette policy. With the
Well, not, I
DCP
mean, in school. I'm only
policy we had was, I believe they still were accepting volunteers as long as they were vaccinated and masked. They instituted before even Vax DC, they instituted a vaccine mandate for all schools, and that encompassed anyone who entered schools regularly, including teacher or parent volunteers. So I'm not familiar with anything that they're not allowed, but it might be a Lafayette thing. I haven't heard about that though.
Okay, if you could just follow up and just make sure that because I'd like to make sure that parents know that if they want to volunteer, they're able to do so as long as they meet whatever criteria it is that is in place.
I'd be happy to speak with the principal on that, but
Doesn't have to be not Lafayette specific necessarily, but it if you could find out, that'd be great.
Sure thing.
Connie?
Amir, all over Twitter, there are a lot of unhappy people about this change that Mayor Bowser has put in, which is to not require the vaccination proof and also then lift the mask. Can you tell us the rationale for these 2 actions?
Sure thing. So what DC Health and Dr. LaQuandra Nesbitt have been pointing to is the fact that since our winter surge of Omicron, the case and hospitalization rate have dropped by 90 and 95% respectively, although I might have those figures reversed. Point is, they've significantly dropped, and as they've stated, the new surge has proved to become less deadly now than it was a few weeks ago. So that rationale has led them to end the vaccine mandate and choose not to continue with the mask mandate. However, one of the questions that came up during the press conference was, what does this say moving forward for, because, you know, before Omicron, we had opened up, we had removed restrictions, and Omicron came, we had to add them again. So the question was, what are we going to do if there's a future surge of some sort? And DC Health and Administration remain committed to being nimble and making sure that they can make these decisions on a case-by-case basis as we proceed, as we examine the science. So they are currently actively monitoring case rates, all the metrics that go into making these decisions. It seems to me that the case rate and hospitalization rate becoming so low have been the main driving factors in choosing to remove these restrictions at this time.
Well, you know, I'm just going to, and my personal view is, I think the vaccine mandate is pretty important because it gives people confidence when they walk in to be able to take off their mask because it's been checked and you know that everyone in the room has been double vaxxed and possibly boosted, and you feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think by removing both, and a variant could come, I mean, we don't want it to, you're going to go up and, you know, back and forth, and it's confusing. And so my feedback is, you know, we stick with one and we could lift or unlift the mask mandate, and people can still wear masks if they feel comfortable, but we know that vaccines work and we want to encourage people to continue to be vaccinated to protect themselves and their neighbors. And so that's my personal view. And I hope that it gets you know, that you could transmit it over to your team.
Absolutely. Thank you for that input. Yeah, I'll be sure to put that in my weekly reports. And yes, I have heard that, you know, many people have felt comforted by the fact that their establishments are checking the vaccine status. And so to that, you know, they can still choose to institute that if their patrons see that as an important thing. But I'll be sure to include that in our transmissions to leadership. So thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Thank you, Amir. Appreciate
Thank you for your
comments. Okay, with that, we'll go into the substantive issues and discussions of the evening. The first is with regard to a public space permit application to extend an existing alley. This is behind the 6400 block of Barnaby Street. And Commissioner Gore, you're going to be handling this.
Yeah. Okay. So first, if the homeowner, if you are in attendance, please raise your hand as well as the architect that's going to be presenting. I want to get you guys on screen. Okay. And then I will set this up. And commissioners, I just sent you all the video I took earlier this afternoon. I thought it went through on email, but apparently it didn't. So I just sent it to you via text. Elizabeth, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So we have you're showing up twice. Is one your husband?
One is my desktop, so I can share the presentation on my screen here.
Okay. So are you going to be doing the sharing?
Yes, I will have the presentation for you this evening.
Randy, can you make her co-host?
I can make you a co-host. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm not sure which one.
Oh, yeah.
Should have desktop behind my name.
Okay, I got it. All right, I'll make that co-host.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is application for a public space permit, and I will let Elizabeth and her team pretty much introduce what they are trying to do as homeowners. We'll let you present. Then the commission will ask questions. I will then open it up to community members who've been very involved in this process. Normally, we will ask ask the homeowner, have they communicated with the community? I know the community is here on this particular one, so I will let them speak for themselves. If you want to, at the end of your presentation, just kind of, if you want to give us an overview of your interaction with the community, you can do so as well. But there's quite a few of them on the line that are going to address the application. And I'll let you get started. I know that you guys also just recently resubmitted some things to DDOT. If you can kind of go over that, and just kind of for the commission standpoint, me and Michael have been pretty involved in this from day one. In your presentation, Elizabeth, if you can just kind of give them an overview from the beginning to where we are, as concise as you can make it, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And I would like to point out, I'm joined tonight by Michael Cross. We actually represent the owners. We are the architecture team that have done all of the drawings and technical work on this application, and therefore have been the ones interacting with DDOT on the client's behalf.
Okay.
I still can speak to the community outreach that we've been directed to do at the end of the presentation, and points like that. And I'm happy to run through the full history as well with the DDOT permit.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. One moment. Okay. All right, as I mentioned, we are here to present on behalf of the owner at 6455 Barnaby Street Northwest. The plan for partial paving of the existing alley behind the property. The project is located on the alley between the properties at Barnaby Street Northwest and 32nd Street Northwest. The work zone is proposed approximately 430 feet down the alley from the through alley between Barnaby Street and 32nd Street Northwest, and approximately 385 feet from Worthington Street Northwest. The current alley is a concrete paved alley for the first 430 feet. It then transitions to an unpaved portion for the remainder towards Worthington Street Northwest. There's currently a stormwater channel in place for the first 47 feet of the unpaved portion of the alley. The unpaved portion of the alley is currently being used as an alley, and there are several existing utility poles already located in this public space. As you can see in this photo here, the agencies are actually servicing those poles in this unpaved portion of alley. The official plats from the Office of the Surveyor do call out a full alley for the entire length from the through alley between Barnaby Street Northwest and 32nd Street Northwest, all the way to Worthington Street Northwest. Current plats that are being issued by the Surveyor's Office to date are still showing this as a true public alley behind the lots on Barnaby Street Northwest and 32nd Street Northwest, which would indicate that the surveyor's intention is that this is indeed still an alley. Currently, behind 6544 Barnaby Street Northwest, the alley is mostly unpaved with a portion of gravel. Behind 6451 Barnaby Street Northwest, there's a stormwater channel which also renders their access to the alley limited. In addition to the stormwater channel, there are also two existing bollards and a utility pole in public space behind these properties. The proposed alley construction would continue the concrete alley behind 6451 and 6455 Barnaby Street Northwest, an additional 76 feet. The alley would be paved to meet DDOT standards and would extend 76 feet in length and 15 feet in width, and would terminate behind 6455 Barnaby Street Northwest. The proposed pavement will extend the alley by 76 feet and include an 8-foot stormwater channel to make the total work zone 84 feet in length. The utility pole behind 6346 32nd Street Northwest would then be accessible from the paved alley. Again, the alley would be paved to meet DDOT standards for a concrete alley, which would match the rest of the currently paved alley. Currently, most of the homes on Barnaby and 32nd Street Northwest block have public way access. This diagram shows in blue every property on this block that has private access to the alley via the rear of their home. The properties shown in red have a curb cut allowing them private access to their home. Those shown in purple have both access to the alley via the rear and a curb cut in front of their properties. Therefore, the majority of homes on this block have the ability to provide private parking on their properties due to their access to public way. Having the ability to privately park on your property helps alleviate many issues. A current issue that has become prevalent in the district has been car charging. When a homeowner does not have access to private parking on their property, they're forced to run extension cords through public space to service electric vehicles, which can be very hazardous. The owners at 6455 Barnaby Street Northwest have expressed their interest in adding a car charging station and would be able to do so with private parking available on their property. Finally, prior to this application being directed to the ANC for review, the DDOT application had been approved by all disciplines. Since that time, some disciplines have added additional comments. All DDOT reviews have now been addressed and require that we propose the alley to be paved at a full 15-foot width, which is why our initial plan was revised. The length of the alley is as previously proposed and approved. So to clarify that, our original application was to only pave the alley at a 10-foot width at the full length as already discussed. And that application was fully approved before it was directed to the ANC. Once directed to the ANC, DDOT decided to re-review the application, and their comments directed us to now require a full 15-foot width pavement of the alley and still at the same length as previously approved. To discuss some of the outreach, we have sent letters to the adjacent neighbors that would be affected by this property or by this extension of the alley. Those properties include right next to us at 6451, and also the two properties behind us on 32nd Street. Those letters were sent out a couple weeks ago per DDOT's requirement, and we have logged that in our DDOT application. I think that's all I have at this time. If there's anything else you want me to speak to, I'm happy to do so. But otherwise, I appreciate your time and welcome any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, if you have a question, please raise your hand so that I can see you. Let's start with John Higgins.
Yes, so I have a few questions. I've been down that alley quite frequently, walking with my grandchildren. Haven't been there in a while though. What is the, towards the end there, it looks like you put in some relatively new cement. Is that a stormwater channel that's been introduced recently?
We are proposing the stormwater channel at the end of the new portion of the alley. There is existing a stormwater channel at the existing end of the alley.
John, that was put in by the city some years ago. And it
Okay.
was, if you had a chance to watch my video, it was specifically put in to manage stormwater runoff. A number of houses in that immediate vicinity have experienced flooding at their properties, and that was one way to remedy it. And that stormwater runoff goes directly to the tributary. So if you look at that video, you can see how it flows straight down to the tributary. But that was put in by the city.
Okay. That alley is sort of in a valley with both sides draining down to it. Another question I have is, what happens to the water after the 84 feet? Maybe I missed that. Where does that go?
So we're not proposing any regrading back there. The water would still continue to flow as it does. It just would continue down the alley and through the new stormwater channel that we would be adding at the end.
When you say stormwater channel, what happens to, I mean, does it go into a sewer on Worthington? Where does it go?
The current condition you can see here on the image on the right, it simply just ends in that public space. Ours would do the same, continuing downgrade. It just would be, 70 feet further down the alley until
It just drains into the natural dirt around there?
That is correct, which would be identical to the current condition.
So you're now, so it would not be, so the whole 15 feet would not completely go out to Worthington?
No.
It would just
we are-
stop?
Correct. We are only proposing to extend the alley approximately 76 feet. And currently, to get all the way out to Worthington would be approximately 385 feet.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Randy?
Has DOE taken a look at this from a stormwater management standpoint?
Yes, they have. We have received approval from the DOE entity. The stormwater management asked for a couple questions about grading in their most recent review. Their original review did approve it, but the most recent review asked for some grading information, which has been provided, and we have not had any comments back since.
Did they raise any questions about the increase in stormwater that will be funneled down this alley now that it's a full 15 feet wide and a little bit longer even? There's going to be even more water will be running down that alley.
They did not express any concern in their comment. I can't speak to their thoughts on it, but their comment did not express any concern.
And I think it was Lisa who mentioned that there had been some flooding in some of the houses. Which houses have been, or yards have been subject to the flooding in the past? Do you know, Elizabeth?
I do not.
Okay.
It's the houses directly across from that. So, and I'm sure the neighbors could speak a little bit more intelligently about that, but from my understanding, where those bollards begin, yeah, where those bollards begin. So if you see like from that right side bollard, and there's the looks like asphalt that's going down there on the right hand side prior to it connecting to the concrete, those houses down there were experiencing a lot of flooding, and that's one of the reasons why that stormwater management channel was built up like that. I'll go a little bit further. I've been talking with some of the DDOT officials. I'll go a little bit further into some of the issues and, you know, some things not coming back as of yet. We can discuss that a little bit after other questions get in.
Okay.
All right. Peter, then Michael.
First, just to orient me, in the shot on the right that we're looking at now with the stormwater drainage that exists today, if I kept going that way, am I hitting Worthington?
That is correct. This is looking towards Worthington.
Okay, and everything beyond where the concrete is now, or beyond where you want to put it, is all a paper alley?
That is correct. It is technically a paper alley.
But practically, it is not cleared. It's not, I mean, it's grown up. It's impassable.
That's correct. Currently, it's overgrown.
Okay. And then this question is to Lisa, if she's talked to Commissioner Gore, if she's talked to abutting neighbors. You just said that you've talked to homeowners who've experienced flooding in what I understand to be to the just beyond the right-hand bollard in the picture we're looking at. But I guess what I'd wonder about is the neighbors where the chute ends and it opens up down at the bottom of that.
That whole area. And just out of transparency, I sent the commission a video that I took this afternoon, and you can see where I put my foot down between that concrete and the fence and the depth that is right there. So without all that prior to, all that water was running off in all those property lines, pretty much going down. I know Mr. Henry's property, I believe, is below, and I know he's on below that fence. So all those properties were experiencing a lot of water coming into their property line. Okay. So the whole point of this channel was to redirect that water and channel it back into the tributary away from their properties.
So in fairness to the property owner applying for this, this proposal would simply move the problem on down the line. I mean, it's a problem already with this not done. And I guess the question to Elizabeth is there anything about what you're proposing to do besides moving the problem? Is there anything about what you're proposing to do that would produce a better outcome than this chute does now for the property owners immediately along it, or particularly at the end of it? That's to the architect.
Sure. I don't know if we would be able to speak to that, just because I don't know what a proper solution for this in public space would be. That might be a good question for DDOT as to how there might be a better way to resolve this. As we're proposing it, we would continue the same concrete alley detail that they have currently designed in this area, which does keep that stormwater towards the center of the alley. As you can see in that section cut here, it would slope the stormwater towards the middle of the alley. And then, as you're saying, we are proposing the stormwater channel to continue to direct the water as it's currently being resolved. So I cannot say what we're doing would be a better solution than what is currently proposed, nor do I know what DDOT would request in a situation like that.
Okay, so the way you view this problem, which is completely understandable from the point of view of the property owners you represent, is that the problem at the end of the chute, whether it's the current chute or the chute that you produce at the end of the thing you're proposing, is a problem now, and is a problem that is the cities, whether it's DDOT's or DOEE's, you just want to get your alley further along down there. I presume you'll be able to say that you're going to make it no worse, but you're not proposing to, you've designed nothing to make it any better because you view and the property owner views this as the city's problem. Is that correct?
I also don't know what there can be done to resolve this issue. It was not brought to our attention prior to this point, so I cannot speak to it, nor have I been able to speak to anyone from DDOT about it. Our position is we are simply continuing the alley as it was previously proposed in all DDOT and surveyor documentation, and that we are trying to continue resolving the problem as they seem to have already proposed to resolve it with the current stormwater channel.
Let me add something to this. So can you go to another view of your resubmitted plan? Not this view, but okay. One of the things that I want to caution everyone on the commission about walking this property is, if you see from that video, and I know we got a lot going on, but if you can run through that video as quick as possible, you will see how the channel is lined up directly to the tributary. And I'm sure others can speak on this a little bit more. The way that it is currently designed, they've addressed that stormwater runoff issue. It is running properly through the channel directly to the tributary. So from my understanding, the way that it's constructed now has alleviated the flooding issues that homeowners were having. That's why it was constructed. So the homeowners are not complaining, and they're going to be speaking for themselves. They're not complaining that currently they're experiencing flooding from that channel. That's not what they're saying. The channel has been built to contain that water and direct it directly to the tributary. So one of the things that occurred is when I first became aware of this, the homeowners had paved over this stormwater management channel with gravel in order to kind of put access back there. It was so much gravel that, and when even the director of DDOT, when we walked through, you could not tell the channel was even there. It was buried under probably like 2 feet of gravel. It was a lot of gravel. And one of the things that we were talking to the homeowners about is just, and the neighbors kind of knew this conversation, is what the intent was. So the intent is to put a parking pad in that area so that they have access to parking. So I think one of the things that you really clearly need to understand is that currently the water is being managed and contained, and the purpose is to make a curb cut for parking access back there. So I'm more so concerned now, Elizabeth, hearing you kind of say that you don't know if this is going to be a proper fix. One thing that we do currently know is that there's no issue with flooding in a neighbor's yard as of now, because the paper alley was redesigned to channel that water away from their properties. So I just wanted you guys to kind of understand that, Commission. Any other, okay, so Michael Zeldin.
So Lisa, you pretty much said what I was going to say, which is that there is, to Peter's question, there is no problem. The problem has been mitigated. The only time there was a problem was when the homeowner, and I don't think with proper permitting, paved over essentially that channel that the city built. Then there was a problem, and the water flowed in directions that it shouldn't flow. The DDOT made them remove that because of the flooding that they created by adding that road. What I don't what I can't understand here is how adding a road to and a presumably concrete parking pad in the back of this house, when they have perfectly acceptable public parking in front of their house, how this is not going to worsen the situation that doesn't need to be fixed at all. It seems to me that this proposal has the impact of negatively impacting the flow of water, which is a big problem, as we know, in the city, solely for the purpose of allowing one homeowner to add 2 parking spots and a parking pad to the back of their house, which will then create additional runoff in different directions. So I just personally, I'd like to hear further from you and from the from the neighboring commission members, not commission members, the residents. I just can't see why this should be acceptable, that you get to pave over what the city spent millions of dollars to correct so that you can have a parking spot in the back of your house when you have parking in front of it. And the notion that it may be that the house, which is for sale, I don't know if it's been sold, may be that the future owners of this house may have an electric vehicle, which may have a need for a wire across the sidewalk, just seems to be unpersuasive to me. It just seems this is the act of a homeowner acting in contravention of the general need of the community for their purpose of being able to park in back of their house.
Chaz, then Connie, and then we'll go back to John and Peter.
Thank you, Lisa. This may be the most visited alley in the district today. I went down, and my question has to do with the elevation, which the flat drawing doesn't show, and that is that the alley slants down once it goes past those 2 bollards. And the reason for all the gravel that was there before was to raise the roadbed up to the level of the yard so that you could drive the cars in there. And so my question for Elizabeth is you're going to raise up the alley above the level of the current storm drain, and what that does at the end of the future storm drain, which will be another several feet down the alley, in terms of, does it create a waterfall, or does it affect anything about the nature of the runoff?
We are currently proposing not to change the grading back there. We would be proposing to demolish the current stormwater channel and continue this alley at the same level following grade down the alley. As you say, it will go down grade. But there is no proposal as of right now to raise that elevation.
And so others may know the answer on this, but once this is built, who maintains it, the homeowner or the city?
This is public space, just as the rest of the alley before it that is paved, and therefore would be maintained by the public DDOT.
Right, so you're asking the taxpayers to maintain an alley that doesn't require current maintenance so that your prospective homeowner can park 2 cars on a new concrete pad. And I should add that I think that if you pave over that channel and just continue the alley, you are going to exacerbate the problem, return it back to where it was before they built that channel. That channel was built specifically to mitigate a problem that you are now, I think, going to resuscitate or bring back. That's my view.
Connie?
I have a question of a clarifying question. The purpose of this public space permit, wasn't it to allow access to a construction site? Wasn't that the original purpose? Or was the purpose was it detailed very clearly that it was to put a parking pad down and so forth? Can someone educate me on this?
I can speak to that. We were engaged by the homeowner, by our client, to put in this DDOT application for the continuation of the public alley at the end of their construction phase. So they were already complete with their construction, and therefore it was for the purpose of future parking only.
What dates are we talking about? Because you've said you had an original and then it was revised. Can you just give us some dates and just some timelines so I have a sense of what's happening here?
Sure, I would have to search to find the exact date, but I believe the original permit was put into DDOT. I believe it was mid-November.
And
I'd
what
have to
happened,
find the exact date.
Bonnie, there was a, and the homeowners might be able to talk a little bit more about this, but on November 9th, there was a stop work order for this project. The stop work order was for unsafe work site, damage to public space, illegal use of public space, and improper no permit. Me and Michael were on scene when that, gosh, was that long ago, Michael? We're on scene when all that occurred. And part of that was when the homeowner laid down the gravel. You know, to be honest with you, and I know, Elizabeth, you came into this after the fact, potentially, I'm not sure when they engaged you, but the homeowner pretty much on site told us that their intention was to put a parking pad there. So that was something that was known that they were doing, and the neighbors basically said no and got DDOT and the city involved. And they came on site with me and Commissioner Zeldin and issued a stop work order. So that is when the homeowner was pretty much told, you have to go through the permitting process to get this done.
But they were going through, this is where oftentimes when people do not get, it's kind of like you ask for forgiveness versus asking for permission. So they do the work and then they get caught and then they put in the permit. So my question is, did they put the permit in to get, so that they can access the construction site? And now, of course, it's constructed, it's done. And now the intention is the original permit is to create a public parking pad.
The intention was always to create the pad. I mean, they said that on November 9th when we were there with DDOT. That's what they were trying to do. They gravelled it out, you know, and maybe the community could talk a little bit more about this, but, you know, I think part of the graveling it out was to get access to the site, but they pretty much said right there on the spot that their intention was to put a parking space there. So probably had DDOT and city officials not been involved, they would have just created the parking space there, which you can kind of see on that video, that blackened out area, they pretty much have it lined out. But when the city got involved and the inspection team got out there and issued the stop work order immediately, they were instructed to go through the correct process.
Well, you know, going back to Commissioner Speck's first question about DOEE, I think this is critical. I mean, when the city sees, I mean, we have this problem where I am, okay, at Chevy Chase Parkway. When you have stormwater drain issues and the city finally acts, which could take years, and properties are damaged through many, many years, and they fix the problem, and then a homeowner wants to unilaterally change it for their own benefit because, you know, people have their own property and they want to do what they want to do. I think it's absolutely imperative that the city, if it's going to be ultimately responsible, understands what this means if they're going to, what Elizabeth said, which is to redo the whole thing. I don't see how this can go forward unless we really know, because the consequences, okay, the cost is on us at the end, and the benefit would be to the homeowner. And that, to me, there's not enough positive externalities that I see for me to feel like this is something that I would want to move forward on. So I need more data, I need more evidence showing that the change is not going to affect other property owners, and that the stormwater drain design that was originally designed that's going to be now removed isn't going to cause more problems. I mean, I think this is it's only going to get worse, right? We know this with climate change. So
John, let me go to John, and then we need to move on to the community.
Right, okay, yeah, two further, well, a couple of questions. Is the tributary subsurface right now? It's not visible?
It's visible.
Okay. And there's what, gravel drainage underneath it? And
I don't know what's underneath it. It's big kind of rock. If you have a copy of that video, if you kind of go towards the end, I do some footage of the tributary, but it's a natural runoff that runs from several properties off to the right underneath the fence and down that paper alley.
okay,
So
my
it's
second,
all natural.
okay,
So John, if you were to walk it, it would look to you like you're walking in Rock Creek Park.
Exactly.
It's not in any, save for the new water alley that the city put in. When that ends, it really looks like you're in Rock Creek Park. There are streams,
Right.
there's trees. It's a very natural environment.
It is
Okay.
natural.
last question.
Okay.
What
Yes,
is
go
the-
on.
What is the impact of the pad itself in terms of any kind of negative impact or what that will have on it? And are they considering maybe some kind of permeable pavement for that pad?
We have not discussed that with our client at this time. DDOT has not requested the materiality of that pad, but I'm sure that is something that we could bring up with our client and encourage them to pursue.
Although it won't really make a difference, John, because where that pad is in relationship to the undeveloped part of the park and the way it slopes, it's just going to be additional water that's going to be thrown in that direction, water that now is absorbed into grass. So
That's
permeable or
Right.
not, it's going to create an additional water problem. That pad is going to create an additional water problem.
And that channel is not, so the tributary is not 15 feet. And I really hope you guys get a chance to take a look at that video because you'll see it clearly. The tributary is narrow and it lines up pretty much where the aqua or the water channel stops. So the channel is the same almost width when you get down to the end of it as the tributary. So kind of going back to Randy's point, they're now building out a 15-foot wide alleyway. And in a video, I kind of walk off the narrow part, roughly about 4 feet, maybe a little over 4 feet, that lined up perfectly with the tributary. Now you're having kind of a 15-foot wide alleyway with just, maybe that little part right there. And I don't know if that lines up with the tributary or not. Can't really tell from off of that. So the way it's designed now, it perfectly lines up to flow that water right directly into the tributary. And it's narrow. It's nowhere near 15 feet. Okay. If you guys, commissioners, don't mind, I'm going to move on to the community. And Elizabeth or Randy, if we could take them off of co-host, and let's move to the community real quick.
You want to leave the slides up there for people to refer to?
No, because the community is
Okay.
going to have its own. So let's take that down, and then if we need to bring it back up, we can. And Michael Henry, if you can raise your hand, anybody that needs to be promoted at this point from the community, raise your hand.
Can I just say one thing, Lisa, which is,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I know my tone has been very harsh, and I don't mean to direct it at you. I'm concerned with the homeowners, not you guys. I think you're doing your job and you're representing your client ably. So I've got no beef with you. It's the project that you've inherited.
And Elizabeth, was there anyone from the community that you guys had supporting this project?
We do have some letters of support. I'm happy to share those. I can pull them up here if you would like any specific names, but our client has been speaking to several people in the community and have received some support.
Okay. So Michael Henry, if you guys could come on screen, who is presenting, starting off, and do you need to be made? There you are.
Hey, so I was gonna go first, but I can't share my screen. I guess someone needs to enable me that.
I'll let you do it. I'll let you do that.
And I'm probably just competent enough to goof it up, so let me apologize in advance. Let's see.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
Got it. Let's see. Trying to find the, no, see desktop one and share. Let's see. I'll share the right thing. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Chairman Speck and commissioners, for giving us some time, and I'll try to be judicious with it. I kind of had a pretty well prepared set of notes to speak from that were only going to be a couple minutes, but Ms. Stewart's comments are going to make me kind of, stray a little bit. And I think Commissioner Zeldin, you did a very nice job of saying, no, it's just, my wife's going to prompt me when I screw up here. So apologies, you got a party line here, but I was just going to say your last remarks that you made as far as Ms. Stewart has a tough job today. It's not personal. She's advocating for a client. We certainly hope we maintain that tone throughout what we're about to say, because some of what she said was just, a little bit inaccurate, and we hope to clarify a little bit. But again, I'm Michael Henry. My wife, Sarah, here. We've lived on 32nd Street, the property immediately across the street, for just a little over 7 years. We have 2 kids here and moved into the neighborhood to enjoy what Barnaby Woods has to offer. Happy Valentine's Day, I should say to everybody as well, too, as my little note has. And thank you all for what you're doing, your service to the community. And sorry, we're going probably later than you planned into your agenda tonight. I also just really quickly would want to say thank you, especially to our commissioner, Commissioner Gore, as well as Commissioner Zeldin, who jumped into action when we first kind of saw what the developer was trying to do with this property, and answered our request. It was pretty meaningful, considering other property owners had tried to engage and just got little traction with the city, but everything changed when our ANC engaged. And also wanted to thank the ANC just in general. There's been no public process on this application for a public use change. It's been rather enlightening to me that DDOT could just kind of proceed how they've been without ever engaging anyone in the radius, anyone adjacent. And in fact, we just received the developer's notes and plans just the end of last week, just the last couple of days, maybe 2 business days. It's, I guess I should say, so we've not been consulted ever. No one's ever talked to us about what we'd like to see done here, what our concerns are. And in fact, the very first time I've ever seen anything with parking on it was in Ms. Stewart's current plans. In fact, I'm happy to share what was sent to us. It specifically says 0 parking spaces exist, 0 parking spaces are applied for, and what is it? Well, I guess it's, sorry, I goofed that up. It's existing, it's allowed, and proposed, right? So the first time I've ever seen anything about parking, now we've heard a bit about it, but the first time was tonight, which again, to Ms. Stewart's problems, I guess, not to pile on, is just, it's unfortunate, right? She's put in a bad place, as are you, because, information is evolving. And we think there's been a little bit of dishonesty from the developer going on. I guess moving along to the, and I'll try to skip through some of the stuff, and there's pictures that are more important, but I think it's worth table setting a little bit. The Barnaby Woods is special, right? And I know it's easy to say. I looked at your guys, the ANC's jurisdiction, and we're not Chevy Chase, right? We're not the other side of Connecticut, but we still are close to markets. We're still close to schools, but we have what the other side of Connecticut and a lot of neighborhoods don't have, is we're woody, right? Back from 1935, this neighborhood's been marketed as a woody place, right? In 2008, as I note in my in the bullets here, there was a Washington Post story talking about a paper alley in our neighborhood, very similar to ours. In fact, it quoted one of the old neighbors talking about the importance of paper alleys and what they bring for wildlife and the community and habitat. All that's part of the richness of this neighborhood, and it's something that the developer is trying to change with their application, right? So a lot of things have changed in our neighborhood. I would note the price, right? I wish we could have bought our place for $12,000. But what's continued all this time, right, since the 30s is the natural environment, right, and the open space, and it's purposeful, which I'll get into. But I'm happy to share any of those stories and articles if any of you care, you know, for your archives. The next slide, just to be very, very clear, I'd be interested to see what neighbors are for the developers' efforts here. So we've had a really easy time getting signatures, and we have only solicited people that are on this specific block, right? I've not crossed the street to neighbors to tell them what's going on and ask them for their support. We've only done, you know, there are some people that have signed our letters that are you know, close but not immediately adjacent, but they've done that through word of mouth, right? We have not solicited, we're not ginning people up. On the 21st, we sent a letter to you guys, to the ANC, 34 neighbors. All 5 of the immediately adjacent neighbors are opposed. They're on this letter. Some of them have sent multiple letters. I just think it's really important. Of the 6 properties that this would impact, only the developer's property is for it. The other 5 have all sent, in many cases, multiple letters opposing. Right? We have the same right to enjoy and use our property as any landowner should. You know, the developer doesn't live there, but they do have a right to use and enjoy their property. But we have one too, and this would trample on that, which is why all 5 of the 6, 5 out of 6 have opposed it. And Commissioner Zeldin, you made a great point about that, right? I mean, what about our rights on our property? We're not asking for a change, right? We're opposed to a change. Why would one person's want for economic gain you know, supersede ours? Just kind of moving pretty quickly, and I don't want to go so fast that I talk fast and say a lot of things, but I do want to make the point that this property was purchased in March of 2020, right? It wasn't 15 years ago where a family's been raised there and they're now moving and selling it. The developer bought the property in March of 2020 with no parking. They represented to all of us, right, the one to talk to him anyway, the couple, that they had permits, right, to build this road, a temporary access road that Commissioner Gore and I think Commissioner Zeldin talked about, this heavy rock, right, even heavier than gravel, to be clear for those of you who haven't seen it. My pictures will depict it. But they represented to us that they had a permit to do that. It turns out that they didn't, right? On November 9th, the city cited them for the illegal road, forced them to remove the rock and remediate. The remediation has not yet happened, right? There's still rock there. You'll see it in the pictures. Now they're asking to do what they've done illegally, right? Which is kind of interesting. And in fact, again, go into the kind of some of the stuff that's really been misleading in this whole process. You know, their initial application, and it was actually the developer that reached out to DDOT. They talked about repairing the alley, right? And you'll see in the pictures about what type of repairs they're talking about. They want to extend the alley, right, for parking. There's no repair. This is they've constructed an illegal road, you know, over what was utilized as habitat and open space with a small, relatively small water control feature, right? All for the notion of parking, right? Again, first time they've ever said publicly parking, lots of permits through all the time saying that there's no parking available to them, nor are they asking for any, but apparently I guess they are asking for parking, as we learned tonight. So this is what it looked like before, right? This is just 2017, right? Not 100 years ago. And you'll see in some of these other depictions, but lush, green, there is a water control feature. Some of you asked this question, water flow down the DDOT's channel here, this causeway, and flow down. There's even a causeway beyond there and that actually handled the water. No issues with water. I probably say this multiple times, just to be clear, we focus a lot on water. We're kind of more interested in the open space aspects of this, but to be clear on the water, there is no problem with water, right? There wasn't until the illegal road was installed, but this is what I'm showing you here, the way it was before. There are no issues in the neighborhood with water runoff.
Michael.
Yes, sorry.
Michael, let me just pause you right there real quick. Just because I want to point this out to the commissioners. Where you see that concrete stop, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, and the greenery start, that's no longer there, correct?
Correct. And my next picture will show this. You're taking Sarah's job. She's the one that's supposed to stop me and to make better points.
Go on.
No, but you're exactly right. And the thing I was going to point out, though, real quick before, and I'll get fast now because I've said what I wanted to say as far as table setters. I'll move through this a lot more quickly than I started. like, I think that's an important point to make, right? This greenery was there and it continued on throughout, right there. This notion of this depiction that there's an alley that goes to Worthington is just simply false. There is no alley to Worthington. If you're looking at Worthington Street there, can you guys see it? It's there. It's about 600 yards, probably past that. But it looks like that greenery, or used to, you'll see what it looks like now, with a creek all the way through. Like, there is no alley to Worthington. Now, there is public space, right? But there is no, the notion that there's an alley to Worthington is just is foolish, right? In fact, the point I wanted to make here, though, is look at the bollards, or, it's truly, it's kind of a euphemism. That's a gate, right? There's a gate that was installed there by the city, a purposeful gate that delineated the difference. And we've talked about grade, and we can kind of get into that if you have those questions. But the point is, there was a gate there. And if you walk through there, to Commissioner Gore's urging, it is, when other commissioner noted, a lot of people have traveled through there, and we appreciate them all. But there was a gate there that stopped the automobile traffic portion of the alley, right? And then continued on as open space. It was purposeful, right? And at some point, I think there was actually like hinges and things there. But anyway, the point is, they put those stops there for a reason. It's because they wanted to stop automobile traffic there and have open space and the water control feature beyond, right? Let me go to the next one, but I guess I just want to make the point that if you'll see, I'm pointing at it like you can see it, but here, like in here, all this, it's all green. You'll see in the next picture, this is the illegal road, right? This is what one of the commissioners, I think it was Commissioner Zeldin, mentioned. This was the road that was installed as construction was ongoing, that was misrepresented as a permitted activity, right? Feet of heavy rock, not gravel, huge, heavy, coarse rock that they installed in there, to get access to the back of the property without a permit. You can see it piled up here. You can see that same post right now submerged with rock. That post has probably been there for 20 years, and you'll see it again here. It still lays there. This is what they left after DDOT told them to remove all the rock. There's still on the city's property, I think on the neighbor's property here, there's still a great deal of coarse rock remaining, but not at all, scrolling back, not at all what it used to look like, right? That's what the back of our house used to look like. That's what it looks like today.
Michael, let me just explain this picture too. Go back to where the gravel is. Right. So I want to make this really clear to the commission. This is the gravel that was laid by the homeowners, the developer. And when we were walking back here, you could not see any remnants of the stormwater management channel. We had no idea it was under there. That's how deep the gravel was. And Director Lott was walking back here with us, and we were all trying to figure it out. And Michael and his wife were very sweet and trying to, visually tell us what was underneath there. And one of the DDOT employees actually started just scraping until we got down and actually saw that concrete channel. And we all just gasped because it was so much rock that covered this up. You could not even tell it was there. We had no idea. So, and you could see now that goes all the way down through there. So I just wanted to make that really clear.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Commissioner. It's also an asset of the cities, right? This feature that Ms. Stewart talked about removing, demolishing, I think was the term she used. I mean, it's an asset of the city that hasn't been represented on any of the drawings I've ever seen, right? Never depicted, the fact that there's an asset there. It's also, I haven't measured it ever, but I'm pretty sure that it's longer than I think she marked. I have in my notes here, 47 feet. I'm confident, 47 feet. I'm confident it's much longer than that. There's two, kind of an older version and a newer version, but anyway, we don't need to split hairs over that, but I think it's probably closer to double 47 feet than, and it's an asset of the city is the point. Let's see, here's where we were still. I mean, they were ordered to remediate, on the 9th of November, remediation's not happened, and yet they, basically looking to get permitted for what they did illegally. Just to give you an even more clear picture. I mean, this is just from 2017, this picture here, this is last weekend. I mean, this is what it used to look like. I mean, this is what it should look like. This is, the city had its open space used as, I'm sorry, the city had its public alley used as open space for wildlife habitat. This is what we're left with, right? Commissioner Chang, you talked about parking, right? This is where they hope to park. They've kind of started you know, this area here, I guess they're out there leveling. If you look underneath this mulch, it's actually rock, right, from their illegal road that went up in there before the ANC jumped into action and kind of highlighted what was going on. But, you know, the plants and trees are just gone now, right? This is what we used to be able to see out of our back window. And so this is the original house before this construction, but this is right around 2020, so it's pretty close before construction started. You've got the birches here that are going to speak, I think, in a second, if I don't burn all our time. And this is what you see now, right? There used to be trees down here, and bushes. Right? Obviously, that, you know, the city's going to permit what they permit for on their property. But there's a 15-foot public alley that was open space with foliage and a natural break and a habitat corridor that's now just gone, right? Because of the illegal road. I think that's the thing. It's not so much about the illegal road and that past. It's about recognizing that there was something different here before the developer changed it. And for them to come in now and pretend like there's this finished alley there and show utility trucks driving down it is amazing. There were not. It didn't exist before they built the road. And furthermore, as far as utility trucks go, there's additional lines going down towards Worthington and poles that are in the open space element of it, and I'm sure are maintained just fine. In fact, they've replaced one. Yeah. So what the pictures didn't show by Ms. Stewart is the same crew that did that post went down to the one that's in the open space element, the unfinished, unimproved behind the Bergs, who are going to speak as well. And they fixed that pole without driving their truck down to it. So the notion that they've done the community some sort of service is also a little bit hard to swallow. I guess, and so here it is. You're welcome. I'm glad to finally get there. I guess just wanted to make the final points. We really urge you to reject this public space use change. It is a use change is what they're asking for, right? It's a use change that they just now are admitting is for parking. It's inconsistent with the purposeful open space that has been utilized back there for decades, right? All the adjacent neighbors are opposed, right? Opposed to improving the alley, opposed to additional parking, opposed to everything this application is all about, right? We were just fine with what happened before the developer came in there and built the illegal road. We had no water issues before they built it. We had plenty after they built it to that point, and people will speak to that, I think. But it's also, I think, incumbent upon it. Listen, the developer has every right to ask for things, right? I mean, that's their job, and they should try to make as much money as they can when they flip this property. But the ANC and the city has a responsibility, right, to protect the city's asset, to hopefully, listen to the other neighbors' hopes. And I guess I'd also add that, it flies counter, right? Adding additional automobile traffic and parking down this alley flies counter to the mayor's 2050 net zero edict, right? So and then finally, again, this is a tributary to Rock Creek. We shouldn't just be paving things over and manipulating things just so someone can have a couple parking spaces. We hope that you vote tonight to reject this application, but even further, we hope that you push to DDOT to really rethink this notion of even entertaining the idea of these use changes for paper alleys, right? It just doesn't make any sense that in a city that embraces its parks, that has these net zero, aspirations, to start granting new alleys that have security implications, that actually trample on the environment and run counter to the city's overall goals. So anyway, I've used way more time than I meant to, but I hope that's helpful, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know there's about 7 people behind me that want to talk, but they promised to all be quicker than me.
Okay. So really quick, I want to give the neighbors, and you guys could start off in whatever order. I think Michael had sent the order, but if you could please try to keep your comments to 1 minute or less. I know Randy would be very grateful.
This is Sue Karras. I will start things off. My husband, Dean, and our family resides at 6342 32nd Street. We own the house behind this wooden fence that everyone is admiring this evening. And it is our house that has received the majority of the flooding, and the stormwater drain was installed primarily to protect the erosion that dips down. There are a few things that haven't been referenced so far that I would like to touch on. This drain not only handles the stormwater, there's actually a natural spring that starts at Utah that runs all the way down the valley of this alley. There, if you could see the other side of that fence, you would actually see that there is the natural stream that ends almost exactly where the end of this storm drain ends. So the two converge together. If you were to walk back there on a rainy day, you would be about up to your ankles in mud, because it really is the end of the valley. At the point in time that the stone was installed, what I will tell you is that the change in the direction of the water caused what looked like a waterfall in our backyard, to the point at which we had guests that were out of town that were staying with us, and they texted me to say, the water feature that you've installed in the back of your house is beautiful. And I had to notify them that that actually wasn't a water feature at all, that it was that the water had not flowed down the alley properly, and it was being diverted underneath my gate, down a set of stairs. And as a result of that, I now have permanent damage to landscaping that was installed by the previous owner. I agree with all of Michael's points. I will not beat any of them into the commissioners' heads any further. I guess what I would say is the owner purchased this property for the sole purpose of flipping the property and making a profit. He purchased the property with 0 parking spaces. He went through the entire application process, not asking for parking spaces. He has parking in the front of his house. The extension of this alley does not benefit anyone except him. And quite
Susan,
frankly,
can you wrap it up, please?
that is lining his wallet and his pockets. So I will stop there and pass it off to other homeowners. But we are tremendously grateful for your time and the attention that you've given this matter.
Thank you.
We had Jerry Berg up next. Or Diana, if she's ready to go.
Yeah, hi. I'm Danya Palanker. I'm with my husband, Michael Bogomolny. We live next door to this property at 6501 Barnaby. We bought the house in 2019 and moved up here from Logan Circle. Our house is a fairy tale. And it's the strip of woods behind and what I'm calling a creek, not a tributary, because it's a creek to us, flowing through that really brings it true wonder. It's special, and not just because of the visual wonder, but the wildlife that lives amongst the woods and creeks, and because it flows into Rock Creek. I mean, something so important to all of us in Washington, D.C. And I see ourselves as owners of this property as stewards of this creek. Our daughter, Nadia, who's 7, plays with her friends in the creek. Her fairies live back there. They visit her when she sleeps. She crosses through the area behind our homes to get to her friends' houses on 32nd, I think whose parents may speak too. I'm planning to use the area to help her to get her hiking badge for Girl Scouts because it's walking through trees and a creek. It's like a little part of Rock Creek Park. And I want it to remain a safe space for her. I also live with chronic pain, and this area behind our home brings me a lot of comfort that I can't find elsewhere. I oppose the permit because it risks damaging the creek, resulting in more construction waste running into the creek, hurting wildlife in the area, going against the intention of the city to make it green area. And also we're concerned that, a somewhat sort of marshy area is that's behind 6455. This house is just going to be moved to behind our property instead.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Yeah, and I'm just going to pass my husband who has a few quick words.
Thank you, commissioners. I want to briefly emphasize one point. Just looking at the 4 corners of the application for the proposed extension, it states that the scope of the project is to allow for delivery of construction materials to a work site. The contractor testified this evening that they were instructed to seek the alleyway extension after the construction phase is completed, and therefore the application should be denied on its merits as construction access is unnecessary. The contractor's presentation tonight discussed for the first time a private parking area off the alley extension. However, those plans are absent from any of the prior permits sought or approved by DCRA, including the permit sought after the construction phase was complete. Because an alleyway's extension is unnecessary to complete approved construction, I urge the commission to recommend denying the application. There is more detail in my written submission. Thank you.
Jerry Berger, you with your Valentine, last chance. He may have been called. I think they're the longest married couple on the list, so maybe he's having a cooked dinner. So let me move to Dean, if you can unmute.
Yeah, hi. Dean Gertis here. I live in the house that was in the photo that cost $12,500. But lived in the neighborhood for 20 years. 2 points, will be quick. I had reported to DDOT last March the dumping of the gravel for the construction site. Never heard back from DDOT. I was curious why they didn't follow up on that sooner. And then I want to reiterate, tell you a little story quickly. 20 years ago, the DC government Department of Environment scientists were in the alley and they were in the stream and they identified Hayes shrimp. And the Hayes shrimp is I just sent you guys a link of an endangered species, which is an amphipod that's in the water in 5 streams in Rock Creek. It's only in Rock Creek Park. It's in that stream. If you do approve the project, I wouldn't suggest you do a study first to ensure that the endangered shrimp is not unduly harmed by any construction there. And I don't want to belabor any other points. I know you guys have a long night here ahead of you, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
So I think Jerry Berg is having trouble. I don't think he's been brought in, but I told him to raise his hand. If you can add him, great. Otherwise, let's start, move on to Rachel and Ariel.
Thanks so much, Michael. And just huge appreciation to Michael and Sarah Henry from all our neighbors. Thank you also, Commissioner Gore, Commissioner Zeldin, and everyone on the commission who's really engaged and come so prepared. You should deny this application. It's illegal for all the reasons that people have talked about. In addition, it's going to harm the environment for the reasons beautifully described by Commissioner Zeldin. It's also a matter of public safety. Our second grader plays with the Karras family second grader, plays with the Palenker family second grader. They get joy from crossing through the creek, and they spend time going back and forth in the alley because that's the end of where traffic can go. If we start having cars going back and forth, we're creating public safety risks, and we're reducing the environmental education and joy and use of this space. And last, I'll just say, the commission should be all about public interest. This is a no-brainer on public interest. You're going to harm the district's assets. You're going to harm many neighbors' interests. And at most, the grant of this application will help the pocket of a developer who doesn't live here. And thank you again for all the hard work on this.
Thank you.
I'm here. Ariel and Rachel Evanson Waldman, we just thank you all.
Thank you. And then Dr. Irwin, you're up next.
Finally.
Thanks, Michael, and appropriate since we're at the bottom of the alley here. It's Jesse Irwin from 3220 Worthington Street here with my wife, Frederique, and I appreciate the comments that Commissioner Zellen had made specifically about the impact of the stormwater management on our properties, particularly if this decision creates a precedent for others to follow suit in terms of paving the alley. The DC government spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars representing the culvert that runs through our property at 3220 Worthington back in 2014 after the development of sinkholes on our property. And we later personally spent over $20,000 in 2020 to repair the end wall that marks the start of the same culvert that runs through our property and under Worthington. It was a very drawn out dispute with the Office of Risk Management. We are still considering our legal options, but needless to say, in light of the increasing incidence of flash flood events in our region, my question really is, has the DC government considered the impact of allowing more disruption of this unnamed tributary of the Pinehurst system in terms of stormwater management? And has the problem properly been studied? I mean, I think it's bad enough as it is. And what do we think is going to happen to the water problem if the homeowners are permitted to pave over all the way down to our property edge on Worthington Street? And I appreciate everyone's time this evening. I'll pause there. Thank you.
So I don't know if we've got the Berg's final last call.
I think you have. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay. Jerry and Debbie Berg live at 6350 32nd Street since 1989. I'm an expert on that creek that goes at the bottom of my house. And I actually maintain it. I go out and I take the branches off when they fall from trees and make sure some rubbish is in there and make sure to take it out. And it's wonderful. Our children, grandchildren, friends, neighbors, everyone enjoys it. It's a wonderful thing. And please don't screw it up. And I hope that there's no unintended environmental issues that come about by this crazy idea of paving further down the road. The creek is wonderful and it should not be messed with. Thank you for your time.
And thank you, Sarah and Michael, for all your hard work.
So commissioners, this is the last one, and just want to make the point, this, these aren't odd numbers, even numbers on the Barnaby side or odd numbers on the 32nd. These, all the folks you've heard from are those that are on the block, right? Or face this alley from the rear of their homes. And last but not least is the second immediately adjacent owner on Barnaby, the Birches, and I think it's Jennifer that's going to be doing the speaking, but the Birch is the neighbor next door on Barnaby, our last speaker.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Birch. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. My husband, 3 kids, and I have lived at 6451 Barnaby since 2010. The proposed alley extension involves the destruction of wildlife that makes this unique space so special to the neighborhood. The alley ends where it does because it turns into a creek and a forest. And I have to wonder, could extending the alley to 6455 also literally pave the way for a road all the way down the beautiful green space to Worthington Street? I also can't go without mentioning that the developers have dealt with the neighbors in bad faith all along. They've been dishonest from the start about their intentions to likely live in the house and their building plans. After months of dumpster permit violations, noise violations, clearing land for without permits, and disregard for neighbors, they sneakily went about trying to create a road where they wanted, regardless of how it affected anyone or anything else, or whether they had the permits to do so. This might be a way to earn short-term money, but not the way to build a long-term community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Randy, if we can take everyone down.
Okay.
I'm going to go on and call for the vote. And at this time, I'm move that the commission deny the public space application that's before us. Is there a second? Discussion. Okay, so I'll just start off on discussion for this. Thank you, community members, for testifying. Thank you, Elizabeth and the architect, for testifying. I've spent a lot of time with Michael and his wife, and also talking to the actual homeowner developer. I've listened to all your testimony. I've read all your documents, and I am coming, and I've also talked to DDOT. So I will tell you about a little bit of my conversation with DDOT. I had originally asked for this to be delayed, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to speak is because we've had a lot of delay in this, and I know this has been a contentious topic within the community. So commissioners, thank you for bearing with the community. This has been going on for a while, and both the developer, homeowner, and the members of the community had a lot to say on this issue. So thank you for giving them the opportunity to get this off their chest and inform us fully where they stand. I don't approve of this project for a couple of reasons. And I know that it's still going through some aspects of the DDOT review. I've talked to Public Space Committee as well as Elliot, the manager of the permit process. And particularly Elliot felt, and the question that I asked Elliot, because my review on this is due this week, so I don't have a chance to extend it. I have to put my review in the system, and we need to take this vote before I do that. We felt comfortable that the commission could proceed on action with the information that we have. So I think we have sufficient information absolutely to take the vote. And I do not want to set the precedent of changing public space, in particular for this particular use. We had, if you remember, not that long ago, a curb cut application that came before us again, also in my SMD, where we voted not to approve that and to basically send that back to committee. It did go back to Public Space Committee, and the homeowner did a proper, I guess, curb cut where it was in the front of the house and it was actually going to a parking space. This is very different. And I think the pictures that Michael Henry showed gives you really the full context of what this space looked like before. I do think the homeowner developer's presentation was very misleading because that left all of that information out. That was natural space, and they came in to do an illegal road, which got us to where we are now. So you could see before it was habitated, beautiful runoff straight to the tributary, and it was green space. Now, I know from being on that site, my conversations with the homeowner, him and his wife, and I know what he said. And at that date, he said they were planning to make a parking space. That's what he said. So whether he was trying to get his trucks down there for construction or not, the whole intention was to make that area parking. And in doing so, he destroyed a lot of natural habitat. That should be a sanction in and of itself. We should not, condone that type of behavior from anyone in the community at all. But this is public space. I personally wanted to stay public space. I wanted to stay green space. And Mr. Henry has talked several times about remediating the harm that they've done to that space. And as you can see, that has not been done. I personally not only would like them to, or us to not approve this permit, but I would strongly urge us to say to the homeowner to remediate and turn this space back to what it was before.
Okay, any other comments by commissioners? I call the question then, or I call the question. We've heard enough on this tonight.
Yes, call the question.
Okay,
Do you
all
need a
those,
second?
I think it was seconded, wasn't it?
I don't know. Did you ask for a second?
Yeah, it was.
That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to second it.
Okay, all those in favor of
the motion.
Of the motion. Okay, 7-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and we're only about an hour behind.
Thank you, Randy.
I apologize to particularly the DDOT folks and the DC water people who I know have been on the call for a while, and you've had to wait for all of this. The next item on the agenda.
And just say, we also want to apologize to the Maret ECC.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, can I just say as a comment, point of personal, I hope that my fellow commissioners will let us know when there's going to be I mean, I understand this is a real issue, but I wish I'd known that it was going to be this large an issue ahead of time. And I just think it would be helpful. So in terms of scheduling.
Materialize this afternoon, really. But I mean, we've got to do a better job of controlling our schedule. There's no question.
But Randy, I mean, to Peter's point, if we knew it this afternoon, then we should have at the very beginning just changed the agenda. Then some people who were waiting we could have amended the agenda and given them more time.
Well, we can't postpone a lot of the things that we've got to deal with today. So we have to deal with all these things that are on the agenda. So we just have to get through it. We need to start being more disciplined, though, about how much time we give people. We don't need to listen to, I mean, we really don't need to listen to everyone, but okay, we'll go ahead. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible vote on Maret's public space permit application for a curb cut on Nebraska Avenue. This is another public space issue. This is a straightforward curb cut. And I want to emphasize that the only issue before the commission at this time is the ECC Maret application for a curb cut. The BZA not the Public Space Committee, will decide such issues as whether the parking lot is necessary, whether its proposed size and location are appropriate, what impact the project will have on pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular traffic, what conditions are appropriate to limit the impact of the project on traffic or any other aspect of the project. If the BZA determines that the proposed sports fields are not permitted under the zoning regulations, they're not permitted, then the curb cut permit will be rendered moot. The BZA may also impose conditions that will limit or obviate the need for the curb cut. For instance, they may call for an elimination of the parking lot. That's certainly a possibility. The Public Space Committee's grant of the curb cut application will not affect the BZA's review of the overall plans for the sports field. The BZA will look at the bigger picture, including Maret's comprehensive transportation review. And that is not within the Public Space Committee's purview. So I want to emphasize tonight that we're going to focus on only the curb cut in public space on Nebraska Avenue. And so first we'll elevate, I think, Paul, if you'll raise your hand, the people who want to be Paul Timmons, I'll change your role to a panelist, and Trey Holloway. And I'll elevate Claudia Russell now at this time anyway, as well. She's going to speak as well. Okay.
Okay.
Paul, you want to begin the presentation?
Sure, absolutely. Trey, do you want to put up?
You want to be a co-host?
Yeah.
Yes, I need to be able to share my screen. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, coming up. All right.
All right, there we go.
Thanks, Trey. Good evening. As Commissioner Speck noted, we are here to present a very discrete aspect of the Maret Athletic Fields project, the conceptual design review application for the proposed curb cut on Nebraska Avenue. This application is scheduled to be heard by the Public Space Committee on February 24th, 2022. This application satisfies all relevant DDOT policies and guidelines regarding curb cut approvals. This application has been reviewed by various district agencies and disciplines within those agencies. None of these agencies or disciplines are opposed to this application. As shown in the attached site plan that Trey has before you, the applicant has taken the following actions to mitigate any impacts that the athletic field uses may have with regards to this curb cut. First, I would note that we have shown here that all DDOT site distance requirements are satisfied. That is this kind of trapezoid shaded portion of the site plan. Second, we are proposing no vehicular access will come in from the alley system. That is in direct response to issues raised by surrounding property owners. Third, we are, excuse me here, all of the parking spaces associated with the athletic fields have been pushed further back into the site, away from Nebraska Avenue and outside of the building restriction line. Fourth, Maret and the ECC have agreed to close one of the existing curb cuts from Nebraska Avenue that currently provides access to the ECC campus. Nebraska Avenue will now have the same number of curb cuts that currently exist. One for the circular driveway, one for the ECC parking lot, and one for the athletic field. Finally, Maret and the ECC explored the possibility of sharing the one ECC curb cut that provides access into the parking lot and the buildings on the ECC campus, and determined that it would be not feasible to share that one single curb cut due to the existing building locations and the protection of the large apostle trees on the ECC campus, as well as a heritage tree in and along the public space on Nebraska Avenue. In keeping with Commissioner Speck's guidance, that is our application. That is what we are presenting to the Public Space Committee, and we're available to answer any questions that you may have.
Let me begin with some questions. The darker circles that are on either side of the curb cut or the driveway into the parking lot, those, yes, what are those larger circles?
Yep. Those are proposed new trees that would be planted.
New trees to be planted.
That's
Now,
right.
there's going to, am I correct that there's one cherry tree that is going to have to be removed for this curb cut?
Yes, so that tree is right here. And then we're proposing that down here where we are closing an existing curb cut, we propose to plant a new small tree, species to be determined in coordination with urban forestry.
And that will be a street tree then, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, the space that's marked on here for proposed pickup and drop off, that seems very close to the curb cut. Is that, have you done anything to modify that, or is it, can that present any problems with sight lines?
So Paul noted the gray, I can't remember my geometry, but that shape there, right? So those are the sight lines. And previously the pickup drop off it did start here, right at the edge of the curb cut. We did have some good community discussion at one of our office hours, and it was suggested by a community member that we move it down to improve the sight lines, which was made possible when we did close this curb cut. So the pickup drop off is now starts here and goes to about here. And so it's clear of those sight lines.
Okay. Now, I see that there are 2 heritage trees there along Nebraska.
Yes.
About how far from the curb cut are those heritage trees?
So let's see. This one, I'm hazarding a guess, to be honest with you, but I'll give you 2 things. This one's about 125 feet, and this one's maybe between 75 and 100. However, we have had conversations with urban forestry. They have, and we have submitted a tree preservation plan that's posted on our website, and urban forestry has approved our tree preservation plan as it relates specifically to the curb cut. So they're very comfortable with the distance of those trees from the curb cut and what we plan to do to take care of those trees.
I also noticed, though, on the comments on the DDOT website that there are a number of conditions that urban forestry has proposed. Is Maret willing to agree to all of those conditions?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we did note that as well, and that's a common thing where the agencies will approve with conditions. And of course, we'll meet those conditions.
And the same is true with the Planning and Sustainability Division's conditions that they put on the application?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And this is it's 24 feet wide at the curb cut. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would handle cars going both directions?
That's
so
correct.
You wouldn't have to have anybody, even the trash collection trucks, they would be able to come out directly into they wouldn't have to back out of the driveway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, other commissioners, you have questions, John?
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned that several agencies have given you the green light on this, or at least are positively disposed to this. Can you, and we just mentioned urban forestry. Can you tell us the other agencies that are involved and that have given you, made their perspectives clear?
Sure, let me go to Washington Gas, DC Water, Verizon, IPMA, which is infrastructure, I believe public management, a discipline within DDOT, OP Urban Design, and the Policy and Sustainability Division of DDOT.
I would say the only thing that DDOT has not seen on, because there was a recent change on this plan, is moving the pickup drop off down. And we're discussing that with them tomorrow, but we expect them to be to like that, because it definitely increases pedestrian safety and vehicular safety.
And again, but that's also, that is kind of more of, that's outside of the curb cut application. but for the issue of it's making the curb cut site distance greater.
John, you have anything else?
Nothing, no.
Connie?
I just wanted to ask about the trash thing again, because I do see a question. So I'm just going to read the question so that we can get an answer, because I had the same question. If they take away the existing curb cut on Nebraska Avenue, where is the garbage dumpster going to be placed and picked up? Currently, the dumpsters are near the existing curb cut driveway.
So we're proposing to put right here,
Okay.
trash dumpsters. You can see they're at an angle, so the truck would pull in and be able to drive into it there and then exit the parking lot.
Okay, but they're not backing out, so they can drive in, get there, back, reverse. I don't have the arrow, so I can't really.
Yeah, they may
say.
have to
They just reverse down and then they can make that right and get out of there again, right? So reverse back.
pull
Okay.
in. They may have
Yes,
to-
I'm sorry, all within the drive aisles of the parking layout.
Do you happen to know whether they have to back out now from the curb cut where they have? It looks like the only way they can get that is to back out into Nebraska.
Yeah, so specific to ECC, so the Episcopal Center has, over here in the pink area, they have a roll-off dumpster that they're using.
Yeah.
And so that's a temporary thing for them. So this is a 12-foot alley driveway that we're proposing to be closed. And so they do have to pull in there and then back out. ECC's normal trash dumpster, which we're not proposing any change to, is actually located over by their parking lot, which would be the middle of the curb cuts there on Nebraska Avenue. And that's where they would likely continue to have their regular trash pickup.
They're going to move it to that spot over there for it to be.
That's where
picked
it
up
currently
more
exists.
easily. Got it. Okay. Yeah, but there is a dumpster that you were pointing out over there right now.
Right here.
Right, but that will be gone. So when you say it's closed off, what does that mean between the pink and the white?
So are you talking about right here, Connie?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So what we're proposing is to have a vehicular gate that would be here. And that's mostly programmatically for the ECC, right? So that their kids kind of stay on their side of their property for when they restart their program. But we've worked out an agreement with the ECC whereby we'll be able to allow vehicular access back and forth as needed. So if they did need to access here with a service truck, that they could do that. So closing this curb cut would not be an issue.
Okay. And so can you show me, my next question is, can you show me when vehicles are traveling along Nebraska, how would they come in? Can you just indicate with your arrow, like if they were coming east, from east to west or west to east?
Sure.
What would it be
Yeah,
like?
so I mean, so all vehicles would take entrance from here. So coming east to west, they would turn in, and then same thing coming west to east, they would turn here, and then from east to west, doing the same.
Okay. And is DDOT going to paint the road? What do they say about that? What are they going to do to make this safe for people entering and exiting?
You mean like for folks that are like crossing or like pedestrians crossing?
Pedestrians as well as other drivers. In terms of the sight lines and everything, it's going to be easy to see when they turn in and come out. That intersection, that little driveway, I mean.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to discuss this more with DDOT tomorrow, but we do think that the sight lines are okay. I believe we cover that in our CTR, in our comprehensive traffic review, that the sight lines here are sufficient based on DDOT criteria.
Okay.
Okay, Michael?
Randy, it's actually a question for you. I just want to make sure that I follow the order of things, which is that if the curb cut is approved, it won't be cut unless the field proposal is approved, right? So this is, in some sense, it's academic from no one's going to go out there with machinery tomorrow and cut anything. It's just setting the groundwork for should the overall plan be approved or some aspect of it approved, then they have the authority to cut the curb. Is that right? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct. Paul can chime in here too if he wants to.
I agree with Randy.
It's always a good thing to do.
Okay, any other commissioners have questions? There's one other question in the chat, in the Q&A. I think this was answered, but you can answer specifically here. Does Maret's tree plan designate a 57-foot approximately radius critical root zone around heritage tree number 348? And is the curb cut well clear of that distance?
It may. I don't have it in front of me for the exact measurements. That's definitely possible. And I believe it is clear of that, but I would say more importantly, DDOT has reviewed, all of our tree inventory information as well as the curb cut application. That's at DDOT Urban Forestry. And so they are comfortable with the clearing distance that we have for the curb cut from the critical root zone in conjunction with the measures that we would be taking to protect those roots.
I would just add in the chat, Brian Rule of VICA answered yes.
There we go.
Yes, in the sense that it's beyond the curb cut, is beyond,
yes,
beyond the critical root zone. Okay. There is a question here about monitoring the parking lot to avoid traffic backups and congestion, but that's really not related to the curb cut. And so that's something that the BZA will certainly be looking at as part of the comprehensive transportation review, but that's not really part of the curb cut. Okay, any other commissioner questions?
Well, just a comment. I mean, given the presentation we heard prior to this about how every city agency signed on to some way of treating a problem on that alley, I do hope whatever we vote on, if we vote to endorse this, that we emphasize the conditionality on the BZA considering the overall plan. I mean, just because there are a list of agencies that have approved it, certainly after a meeting like this tonight, doesn't cut the mustard.
I agree. Okay, there's another question about traffic turning left toward Rock Creek Park. And that's again, something that the BZA will be looking at in the transportation comprehensive review. Okay, no more questions there. Claudia Russell is going to be making a presentation for the Friends of the Field. Claudia, you're
Hello.
You're up. Yes,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello all, and good evening. I wanted to just mention that I had a discussion with Emma Blondin today to have a little guidance to make sure that I didn't stray out of the wheelhouse that I could be in. And she did say, Randy, that safety and visibility concerns were very appropriate in this discussion. Will you accept that, or do you believe that's not the case?
No, they certainly are. And
Okay.
we've just been talking about sight lines and those kinds of things, and certainly it would be appropriate to consider that. But the bigger issue of the amount of traffic that's going to be produced, all of that, those kinds of things, the number of vehicles, that kind of thing, is all part of the BZA application.
Good, thank you, because we began this meeting talking about car crashes and accidents in the neighborhood. So I think our comments have some relevance. And we're very grateful to the Maret team for shifting the pickup and drop-off area, because we had great concerns there. And we hope on Wednesday, can we bring up traffic concerns and study concerns in the Wednesday meeting? Is that appropriate?
The Wednesday meeting is going to look at exactly that issue, the comprehensive transportation review with DDOT. DDOT will be there to help answer questions, help the commission answer their questions.
Terrific. Okay, so Friends of the Field does have some pedestrian and bicycle safety concerns relative to the curb cut. First, we'll talk about pedestrians. Within the past decade, a large percentage of homes, and for example, 50% on those on Rittenhouse between Utah and Nebraska, have changed ownership. Young families are eager to live in this neighborhood because of the schools, playgrounds, but most of all, its walkability. Whether it's walking their children to or from Lafayette Elementary School, the playground, using Nebraska as a link to Rock Creek Park, Nebraska Avenue has become a pedestrian thoroughfare. The neighborhood surrounding ECC boasts a network of great sidewalks, allowing for spontaneous social interaction, and they've become critical to our social structure, particularly during COVID. We can't imagine that going away. The sidewalks, not COVID. That is why our commercial 24-foot wide curb cut intended for the heaviest use during the busiest period of foot, bicycle, and vehicular traffic, namely the afternoon peak hour, is of course a safety concern in a residential area with this obviously growing pedestrian traffic. Bicyclists. A significant number of bicyclists heading to and from work during the week and pleasure riding during the weekend use Nebraska Avenue and its connections to Rock Creek Park. With the very likely permanent closure of Beach Drive in Rock Creek Park, the growing use of Nebraska becomes more important. Nebraska currently has no designated bicycle facilities in the section, and bikes share the travel lanes and parking lanes with moving traffic and parked vehicles. Bicycle lanes shown on DDOT's priority bicycle map in the section of Nebraska are mostly aspirational. This curb cut introduces new traffic conflict points where pedestrians, bicyclists, pick up and drop off cars and buses, vehicles entering and exiting the 24-foot wide commercial curb cut on a hill would mix with moving traffic. All would be faced with visibility concerns due to the grade of the road, because it is a significant grade, as we all know. We oppose it, and we ask that this matter be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda, the February 24th Public Space Committee, to allow adequate opportunity for our neighbors to express their concerns. Thank you for allowing those of us who live in the neighborhood to offer our thoughts.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, any commissioners have questions? I have a couple, but I'll let commissioners go first. Go ahead, Connie.
No, I did not raise my hand. I said, Randy, you should just go forward and then we'll jump in.
Okay, I had just a couple of questions, Claudia. I know in the letter that the Friends of the Field wrote to. Now, Connie, is that correct? Did we put that on the website? No, we didn't. Okay, but anyway, the friends wrote a letter late last night about the curb cut, and you indicated that there were 15 curb cuts on the south side of the 5800 block of Nebraska. Is that right? 15 residential curb cuts?
I would say if it's there, yes. Because each house has a curb cut. So if there are 15 houses, right, there are 15. Now, some of those curb cuts are somewhat shared, but they're still individual driveways.
Yeah, I went and looked at it today, and I think there are 6 that have double curb cuts. And so they're each 24 feet wide. So those are really equivalent then to the width of the curb cut that Maret is, right?
The curb cut, yes, you're right, is, but they do go to independent driveways because there's a grassy strip generally in between. But yes, you're correct.
And in those instances, I think every one of those houses, then the car has to back out into Nebraska rather than heading out into Nebraska.
You know, people park different ways. A lot of people park heading into Nebraska for the very reason that when they go home late at night, it's easier to back in and then head out. And then I'm lazy and I just go right in and then deal with the traffic in the morning.
Okay. So you either have to back in one way or the other, though. It's not, you can't turn around on any of those.
Oh, no, absolutely not. They're just narrow driveways.
Randy,
Okay.
before you go further, I want everyone to know that when we record this, because Claudia, your video is turned off. You won't appear.
Oh, I'm
It's just
sorry.
gonna be your
I
voice.
thought you turned on my video and I was just off the screen.
Okay, good,
I
good.
apologize.
Now you just won't be a
I'm
voice
here.
in the dark. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
Let's just assume for a moment, Claudia, that the BZA approves the parking lot and the sports field. Do you have any alternative proposal for where they could get access to the parking lot?
I think we've sort of talked about it. We know it's more how it ends up being redesigned. I mean, if it is the one field we'd like to see, we would hope that it would be working with where there's the existing that is being removed, curb cut, which is in a less vulnerable spot on the hill, and would, it's already there.
And have you considered that curb cut is right next to a heritage tree?
Well, I have to get back to this. We haven't designed it. So, we haven't redesigned it. We're hopeful that it could change. And if that heritage tree is a problem, maybe moving it down a little, but right there in the hill, we feel it just feels dangerous. And kids are skateboarding down the hill. It's better to be up top when you can see the traffic light, you can see the traffic. But again, I'm not the designer at this point.
Okay.
If you asked me to be, I could look at it.
Okay.
Randy, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
Who had the question? I'm sorry. John?
John had his hand up first.
Okay.
I would just like to see, I think Brian Rule is on the call tonight. Maybe he could speak to Claudia's alternative.
I mean, I'll be really honest. I think, we are proposing this curb cut because we think it makes sense. It satisfies the requirements. It meets our requirements. I'm not sure how much benefit there is to talking about a hypothetical situation to do this curb cut. I think what we'd like to do is move this project forward, move this application forward with the curb cut that we are proposing this evening, which we think does satisfy all of the requirements, but also provides for a safe environment for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Lisa?
So I was just going to piggyback off that to see if there has been any real consideration about the pedestrian safety issue. I know everybody wants to speed this along, but
absolutely, Commissioner Gore. So in the Comprehensive Transportation Review, the CTR, the curb cut was analyzed, and it is projected to operate 1, at acceptable levels of service, 2, in accordance with all DDOT's criteria, and 3, without adverse impact to the surrounding neighborhood, including pedestrians and bicyclists. We believe that, I guess additionally as well, the location of the proposed driveway is appropriate to ensure that cues from the traffic signal at Utah and Nebraska will not block the driveway. And we think that a lot of these questions about, just as Commissioner Speck had said, questions about pedestrian safety, bicycle safety are really addressed in the BZA process, will be discussed by DDOT, how they review it on Wednesday night when they look at this application. And they really go to the core of the BZA's approval, finding that they can approve the Maret athletic fields because it's not creating objectionable impacts due to noise, traffic, parking, or other objectionable conditions.
I wanted to add too, so as you all I'm sure know, we have a lot of Maret families that live in that neighborhood. We are going to encourage our folks to walk and bike to the site when they can do so. So we do care deeply about the pedestrian safety aspect of this. I think moving that pickup drop-off zone down Nebraska to increase those sight lines was a big thing that we did. I know that I personally, along with Jamie Milanovich, our traffic consultant, have had conversations with Councilmember Louis George's office about her legislation she's put forward. I know Commissioner Gore, you recommended that I do that. I have done that to speak with them, just to make sure that we're, looking at all these issues and taking care to address them in a thoughtful manner. I also think the big one is that we are closing the one curb cut with curb cut with ECC, and they do have a need still for that curb cut, but we worked out with them how they can use the curb cut that we're proposing so they can still meet their needs. And I think that's the big one, right? So we're not adding a curb cut to Nebraska Avenue. It'll still be three curb cuts there, like it is today.
On the
Well
issue
said.
on the issue of pedestrian safety, particularly though, would Maret be amenable to a condition in the BZA proceeding that required a parking lot attendant to stop the traffic if there were pedestrians on the sidewalk and to ensure that the traffic coming out of the parking lot was being controlled? Are you amenable to a condition like that?
So we've talked about that. I think we're open to the idea that when we think the parking lot is going to be heavily used, so close to full, that's something that should happen. We're certainly open to that idea. We don't expect that the majority of our use that's going to occur, right? Again, we keep talking about, practices where we're going to bus kids over in our school buses. That's going to be a lot of the use that we have, but we do know that there will be games where the parking lot is going to be at capacity. And so we do think that that would be an appropriate time to have someone monitoring for that.
And I would say, following what Trey said, that is part of our transportation demand management plan that we proposed and is in our proposed conditions.
Okay. Okay, any other questions commissioners have? Has there been anything else in the Q&A? Okay, there's a question about, could commissioners ask Maret to repeat when and how often the lot will be used? It's my understanding that most days of the week there will be 2 buses and a couple of cars for coaches. I think there's some confusion about the anticipated use of the lot. Trey, you
Sure.
want to address that?
The lot would be used every day, right? If we busing kids over, we would make use of the lot to drop the kids off. It is correct that we would have 4 or 5, maybe 6 coaches on a given day who would use a personal vehicle to get to the field. So we do expect that it would be used each time the field is in use.
Okay, any other questions? Well, I would move that we approve the application for the curb cut at the Public Space Committee, but contingent on the BZA's approval of the overall project and approval without any conditions that would require a change in the curb cut. Is there a second for that motion?
Wait, Randy, say that one more time. I lost you toward the end.
I move that we approve the application for the permit with contingent on the BZA's approval of the overall project and approval in such a way that does not change the requirement for the curb cut.
What does that mean? What is
Well,
that last
the
portion?
only time the curb cut would apply is if the BZA doesn't do anything to change it. If the BZA, for instance, eliminated the parking lot,
Right, then this is moot. This doesn't matter, obviously. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but why do we need the last few words? Anyway, it should just be contingent on the BZA approval with
Right.
all of their conditions, the end,
Okay.
right? That's it. That's the, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's second. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Thank you.
Michael, you had your hand up, right? Did you 7-0? Okay.
No.
It was just low, Connie. It was down.
Didn't see
down
it.
here.
Didn't see it.
My arm is getting tired.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the DDOT presentation.
Oh my God.
Randy, can you change Trey from host?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Trey.
And Thank you, everyone. Is Christian able to share his screen? Otherwise, I suppose I can share mine to have his presentation up. Is he the first one to go? Or will it be the Oregon one, Lisa, Randy?
I think we'll start with Christian. Or well, it's up to Lisa. What would you like to do, Lisa?
It is, Lisa's brain is gone.
Quick, it's like a race car thing. Quick, we need a replacement.
Oregon, Christian, what you want?
Hi, everyone. How you doing tonight?
Hello. We're still here.
I think Jam probably wants to talk about Oregon Avenue first. I mean, ladies
Okay.
first is my prerogative, so I'll let her go.
Wow, thank you. Good evening. Also, Commissioner Speck, I think Dennis Howland may be on the call, as well as Joe Jackwecki.
Okay. Dennis and Joe.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I don't see Dennis. What's his
I don't
last
see
name?
Dennis.
Howland, Howland.
Joe, could you raise your hand, please, to make sure I've got the right person?
And Jam, is Dennis on the phone or is he?
Well, he may have had to leave by now.
Okay.
Sorry,
we're so late.
Not a problem. Joe is fully capable of taking it from here. Can I share my screen for just a moment?
Just Joe doesn't have a last name.
Yeah, no, he shows up. He's
there. On. We see him.
Oh, he's already okay. Got it. Okay. All right. Okay.
Can I share my screen?
Let me see, Jam. Just 1 second.
Sure.
Make you a co-host. All right. You may share your screen.
Okay. First, I'd like to just say thank you. Are you all able to see it?
Yes.
The website?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'd like to thank you all for having us on tonight and arranging for us to be added to the agenda. And we are here to speak specifically about the Oregon Avenue reconstruction project, phase 3, which is the completion of the bridge and the anticipated opening of the remainder of Oregon Avenue. So before I turn it over to Joe, I'd just like to thank the community for working with us. We have endured 2 winter seasons. We've endured a pandemic, and we've managed to stay almost on target with our timeline. So we couldn't have done it without the community. So we really appreciate that. And I want to go ahead and turn this over to Joe. And before I do, let me just say that I have the project website up. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I do want to just let you know that what you're looking at is the completed project for phase 2. So we are excited. It has turned out to be a very lovely stroll down Oregon Avenue. And we are looking forward to the next few weeks as we close in on the finish line. So I'd like to turn it over to Joe now.
Hi, good evening all. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity given to us to talk about where we are in this timeline of the construction. As you are very well aware that we've been working on the bridge, and we've uncovered a lot of unforeseen circumstances that continue to hold us up. Our schedule have shifted towards finishing this project at the end of March. And the problem was basically having all the utilities, overhead electrical work moved off the way so that we can be able to get the bridge work done. All the substructures that we're supposed to do, if you're all aware, this bridge was designed by edge piling, but because of the noise that is going to create within the community, the noise of hammering the edge pile in the ground, DDOT decided with the contractor to move it to another type of foundation, which they did with trying to do with micropile. And after further investigation, they found out the micropile will not work. And finally, they decided to do K-sand. And now doing the K-sand, we have to get a machine that will possibly not to touch the overhead wire doing the auger drilling. And that's how we started doing the foundation as casing. So it shifted from edge pile to micro pile, and now the casing. Casing is done. And all the substructure, the substructure that included in the casing is all done. And now we got to the part of removing the existing box culvert. And we ran into issue with environmental and trying to mitigate polluting the water during the time of removal. Now that we have removed this box culvert, and we have to start working with the stream bed to make sure that the 50-year design of storm water for the creek is maintained. Now we found out that after digging down 3 to 4 feet, it's all red soil. And when that red soil mixes up with water, it will start polluting the stream. Now the pump around that is going on right now is working fine. And we're trying to see how we will mitigate this sediment coming down the stream. And that's exactly where we are right now. Once we finally get hold of mitigating this sedimentation, we will proceed further with full force to work on the stream bed. And after that, the superstructures, everything that will be on the top of this bridge has already been precast, ready to come on site. We are now working with PEPCO for them to give us schedule when they will de-energize the overhead wires so that we can transport the superstructure on site and put them on the northbound and the southbound abutment so that we can bridge the stream. Now, remember, before it used to be a bus culvert, but now it has opened more wide so that the water, whenever we have rain, can pass through the bridge without coming up to the top of the bridge. And that will be resolved once this is all done. However, we're still looking to get that done by the end of March. And we hope that PEPCO will be favorable to us and give us a timeline that we can be able to get the superstructure put on top of the bridge and then finish all the paving that remains from the bridge to the first driveway going south, and also from the bridge to Beach Avenue. So that's pretty much what is left on the corridor to be done. Thank you.
Peter?
Joe, have you had conversations with your designer and your engineers? I think you just listed 6 changes, 3 different foundation changes, You seem surprised by the underlying material in the stream. I assume you have streams up and downstream from the culvert. I mean, how could you have ended up with so many different so many project changes on not a huge bridge, is it?
Well, it's a part of the construction. The first change was mitigated to avoid the noise of hammering H-pile inside the wall and inside the creek area. That's gonna be a headache for the residents. Every morning they're gonna hear boom, boom, boom noise. So to eliminate that, we thought about doing micropile. And apparently the bedrock is so deep. The bedrock is so deep that the micropile will not fit. So finally, we moved over to do casing. Now, all this were happening while we were doing phase 1, phase 2, not even on phase 3 where the bridge is. So those are things that they thought ahead of time before they got into the bridge.
Let me just withdraw the comment and just say, realistically, given what you've said, do you think this is done by the end of March? It's only 5 weeks, 6 weeks away, right?
Well, based on the schedule that the contractor is giving us that we have currently, they still believe that they will get it done by the end of March. And remember that the superstructures, superstructures, it's already been done since I believe last year. They are on a storage facility, or the planks that will bridge over the bed of the river has been done. All we need is to transport it on site. And then if PEPCO will give us a nice, good time to de-energize the overhead wire, then we put up the crane and put everything where they're supposed to be and grab.
Okay, John?
I say this not so tongue in cheek. Who can we call at PEPCO to encourage them to cooperate with this?
I can give Jam the information or the phone number of who to call, and then Jam can, make sure you get it for your help. We appreciate it.
I'll be happy to send you an email.
I think you've got mine already.
Most definitely.
We're glad to talk PEPCO.
So we've provided just an update on where we are. The timeline is on the website. So anyone who wants to go out there, we update the website every week. The construction manager's report is on the website. The look ahead is on the website. We encourage you to definitely go out there, but the timeline that we're staying and moving towards is the end of March.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Jam.
You are so welcome. Thank you again for having us.
You bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to go to Christian next. And who's going to be able to, Christian, can you put up should I make you a co-host?
You can try. I've been having issues with my screen share, so I can try to see if it works. If not,
why don't you try, and then if you can't do it, then I'll share my screen, which is I have your presentation up.
Okay.
So
yeah.
you try first.
Perfect.
Okay. Did the DC water people abandon ship? I don't see anybody. If there's anyone from DC water, if you could raise your hands. Yes, I got you. Okay.
Are they supposed to talk? Are they going to talk, Randy?
Yeah, they were going to talk about the Bingham Drive rehabilitation.
Oh my God, when was that unearthing?
Well, Jam asked if they could be included, and
So it says host is disabled participant screen sharing, so.
you should, no, well, I had you as a co-host. Let me try it again.
Randy, shouldn't we ask DC Water then to go first? Because I think we're gonna have a lot of questions for Christian probably. What do you think, Christian? Are you able to stay
Lisa?
a little longer? Lisa, what do you
I mean, I can stay as long as you want me to stay. If DC Water is gonna be a fairly short.
Yeah, are they gonna be, Randy?
I don't know.
Yes,
I can also be
we
rude
will be
too.
really quick. Really quick.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
And was there anyone other than you, Tiana?
Yes, so on the call also, I have from the program management, David Holler Levy and Saeed Sharifi.
Okay, I'll make both of them panelists as well.
Thank you.
And shall we go ahead and do that now then?
Yes, please. I think we should do that.
All right.
Because.
Okay.
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 And you're going to report to us on Bingham Drive, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Let me just get my okay.
Does anyone need to share their screen or?
No, it's just honestly, it's really quick. So good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having us. My name is Tijuana Haynes, and I'm a project consultant working with DC Water's outreach team on with the Bingham Drive permanent paving restoration project. Also, as I've already noted, that I have the project management team as well with me in case you have any technical questions afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I will just give you a quick overview of the construction that will take place within the next few weeks, to which notifications were originally distributed at the end of January, but they were revised and redistributed at this past Friday. So in preparation of permanent paving work, the contractor will be installing a full depth permanent pavement along the entire length of Bingham Drive and adding stormwater management features in 2 bioretention areas. And again, this work is anticipated to begin in the next couple of weeks. So how does this affect the community? Well, Bingham Drive, I mean, it's really no different. The roadway will remain in full closure to vehicular and pedestrian traffic for the safety and the security of everyone while the work is ongoing. However, the revisions come where the pedestrian path that you are all now using will remain open during the length of the roadway work. Okay, so that will remain open. I know we had said it was going to be closed at first, but we revised that, yes. But with the exception to possible temporary detours as needed for safety purposes, and I will let one of the managers speak to that should you have any questions to that. And then once the restoration is completed, all vehicular and pedestrian access will be restored. And this work is estimated to take about 4 months to complete. And that
how about the bicycle path? Like, I know that there are a lot of bicyclists who travel through. How would they do that? Well,
so yes, if they're taking that path, that it will be no change. That path will remain open. So I believe it was a bicycle and the pedestrian path. Yes. Yes.
I'm in a better mood now.
Well, I'm glad.
That's great.
So
that's really good news.
In 4 months, Bingham will be done.
I didn't hear you.
I said you're saying in 4 months, Bingham will be done?
Yes, it should, in approximately 4 months. Now, also, we have to say weather dependent.
Okay.
But I know it's been a long time. So I know you're
a long time.
It has been a long time.
John?
So we do appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question and a comment. At the intersection of Bingham and Oregon, are you going to still have any detour signs or any kind of construction people down there?
Okay. David, are you on? Can you take that question?
David, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just trying to figure out my technical stuff over here. Let's see if I can make this work. Hi, everybody. Good night.
Hey.
Yeah, no, so basically, the existing closure of the roadway will remain as it is right now, with the difference that we will be installing some, we got a petition from one of the residents to install some, notifications in there and some signage for people to understand which path to take and which roads we're gonna be closed. And so basically, as it is right now, it's going to remain with a probably additional detour signs or more specific traffic control measures, so we can really prioritize the safety of the community, the drivers, the pedestrians, the bicyclists, everyone that's out there. And as Tijuana mentioned, we're gonna keep a path open for pedestrians and bicyclists based on the community concern that we received. Again, our number one priority, as always, has been with DC Water as well as AECOM. It's been safety. And so with safety in mind, we're trying to make all these measures work so we can get the project done, as Tijuana said, in record time, 4 months.
Just for clarification, now that Oregon is nearly completion, will your work impede traffic either on Nebraska or Oregon? Or is the detour just related to Bingham Drive itself?
It's only related to Bingham Drive. As I said, the closure as it is right now, it's gonna remain the same. So no impacts to the nearby roadways.
Okay. And my comment to you, Anna, is that we had a residents meeting here at Norwood Saturday, and I informed everybody that they can continue on the path, but don't go on the road.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that. As I said, yes, safety is our priority. So
Yes.
that helps a lot with that. Thank you.
Okay.
I
Anything
have
else?
a question. One more question. Is there anything that shows what the future will look like where the bioretention cells, or whatever the right word is going to be located, and what is it going to look like, Bingham Drive, after all of this is done?
Sure. I mean, we do have our construction plans. A picture of the actual reality of how it would look like, I'm not sure if we have, but I'm more than happy to share those documents with you guys. And if there's any further questions, we can try to examine those.
That would be really good, because I'd like to post that on our website so that people know what's going to come up in the 4 months and who to call and all of that. That would be a really nice thing for you guys to do. So you could send it to Randy, he's the chair, and then he can share it with me.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Sorry,
Thank you.
so late.
Thank you.
Okay, back to Christian.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing?
Okay. Only an 8-minute detour. That's okay.
That's all good. And Commissioner Cadwell, great to meet you, sir. I know this is your new time in the position, so it's good to see you. Yeah, it doesn't look like my screen share is going to be working, so.
Okay, I'll try
Connie, if
mine.
you don't mind, thank you so much for
I
that.
will. Let me see if this works. There it is. And let's see.
Okay, perfect.
Victory. Okay.
Appreciate it. I'll be as brief as I can. I know I'm the last of the leg of keeping you guys from your final hours of television before going to bed. But I'll talk to you a little bit today about the new TSI and ANC resolution process. And yeah, we'll go right into it.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
All right.
So this is kind of a table of contents. So I'll kind of do a step-by-step of what our new traffic safety investigation program is, compare it with the old process. I know this has been something that we've been talking about for a long time, and we have now finally initiated the outreach piece. So I'm very happy that I can actually finally present this to you, and everyone else can be aware of the new system. We have a dashboard now, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with already, but I'll kind of walk you through that process as well. Some FAQs that we've received during this entire time we've been changing this system, and then just some final things on ANC resolutions. And then I'll take your questions.
Okay, so it's showing up here. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So Why or what is a traffic safety investigation for those who are, I guess, for residents on the call who may be vaguely familiar or not as familiar as they want to be. So TSI or traffic safety investigation used to be called a traffic safety assessment. We changed that name just because investigation is a little bit more integrative of what we do and just kind of more and less surface layer. But it's a request that the public can engage in through our 311 system to address any safety concerns on their block, on their intersection of the street that they're in, and allow DDOT to remedy those areas and look at it and assess it to see what changes can be done. Our traffic engineering team is constantly working 25/8 to get these addressed in. And so that process goes into that division who handles all of the kind of the integrative, design pieces and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. So for commissioners as yourselves who are familiar with the old process, we used to have a TSI or TSA questionnaire, which you see on the left. It's discontinued. That's no longer a piece that we have, as well as ANC written endorsement. So residents before used to come to one of you in your SMD to get verification before initiating the process. In leadership's decision to streamline everything, we've removed those barriers to make it very simple for the public to just go into 311, put a request in for any traffic safety inquiry, and then that automatically goes to our engineers to assess. And so the rest of the steps stay the same, but that step 2 you see in red is the key difference that we've eliminated to really move these things ahead. So this kind of reiterates what I just said. So this is also just a process for us to ease accessibility, transparency, accountability on our end as an agency, and give residents a little bit more of a say in how they actually initiate these. We've had many times in the past where residents have had a hard time getting the information on the questionnaire. We used to have a petition process that used to be very long and enduring. So we really alleviate those hurdles for residents. And it also accelerates our roadway safety requests now too. We've eliminated that loophole, and now we are able to process these directly instead of having to get all those information, which of course is tedious on your end too, to get all those endorsements and whatnot. So the new TSI process that you see on the left is our questionnaire. Most of you should have received that email from me last week. It's available for you guys. You can disseminate it to the public and for your own internal knowledge. But this is kind of our new 5-step process that we do. It's been effective since November 1st, but it's really been formalized now out to the public. And I do want to also iterate that TSIs are focused for one traffic safety concern at one location or one block, or if it's corridor wide, it can be multiple blocks in that sense. But we want to make sure that residents are educated and aware that these TSIs are for specific locations in the city, and so we can address those immediate concerns and not for multiple intersections. But I just wanted to reiterate that. So I'll kind of walk you through the steps just for your understanding purposes and for anyone else who's on the meeting as well. So of course, as I mentioned before, DDOT will have residents go into 311.dc.gov to select traffic safety investigations. That initiates the process. That new system on our website is available and active to use. It takes the residents directly to, it's like maybe 10 or so questions. It's very similar to what the questionnaire would be. But it's not, you don't have to have that rehash of information, which is always good. And we want to also note that residents should put TSIs in to focus on the safety challenges and the problems at hand, not necessarily to provide, what DDOT engineers should put in. That is engineering's expertise and their job to determine what systems will be best in place for an intersection or a block. But residents should be aware that, they should just state what the challenges are and for us to identify what those concerns are. So the new TSI, this is kind of what you see on the interface when you go into 311. This second bubble you see on the middle section where it says describe your safety concerns in detail. That's really the key box that we really focus on for residents to when they submit these requests. So I have two examples here in the blue box that really are prime examples of what residents can put, what they should and what they can word in that box. So for example, on example number 2, the residents can say speeding is a problem along Rittenhouse Street, the 32nd 100 block of Rittenhouse, and cars are dangerously speeding. So those they're very straightforward concerns, but they are enough for our engineers to assess, okay, there's a speeding concern here. Let's evaluate this and see what we can do to remedy those concerns. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if my screen is buffering for you guys as well. Is that true?
Yeah, it's taking a long time.
Okay. I was afraid I was just sitting in silence and you guys are waiting.
No, I think it's just my laptop.
Okay, no, that's fine. So the second step, so DDOT will evaluate the safety issue to determine what mitigations are warranted. That's kind of self-explanatory there. Basically, once that goes into the queue, the residents will have the opportunity to basically wait feedback from DDOT. It's still the 130 business days between initiation, that when DDOT receives it, to when residents get any recommendations, whether that's recommendations to change, to make a change on the street, or if it's a recommendation to deny the TSI and explanations as to why that is. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more at the end. So in step 3, kind of just what I just said, DDOT communicates his findings to evaluate to resident. The resident who puts that request in of 311, they will get updates from their email, from our 311 system that informs residents about what the completion status is, what next steps are. Sometimes they go into the junk folder, so there may be times where residents may not be aware that they've received updates. And in that case, always feel free to go to me. I'm always a resource. But as I mentioned also, like I said, it takes 130 business days for steps 1 to 3 to be, processed. So in step 4, this really goes to changes that are to change the existing traffic patterns or on-street parking. Any of those traffic safety investigation requests will require a notice of intent. That's still the same process that we've done before. This is our legally bound 30-day business public comment period for residents to be aware of what goes on, and we inform them about what those changes are to be. But I do want to note, per this new guidance, that feedback from residents and community commissioners, that may not necessarily change the end result, but we do give great weight for those locations as well. But there will be instances where, based on engineering standards or certain studies, like a drainage study that needs to happen, that when we may not be able to go through with certain requests, but we will be as flexible and nimble as possible to make sure we can provide alternatives moving forward. So another difference in this new process that was not in the old process was that our safety, the installations of these safety projects are now happening in a quarter-based system. So we have 4 quarters in the year. We start when the fiscal year starts in October. So October to December is our first quarter, January to March is second quarter, etc. So a request that's put in this month of February, for example, residents won't see that completed until the next quarter, which would be April, June. Just so it gives a little bit of transparency and a little bit more awareness to the residents about when to expect some of these completed projects. But do note also, especially in the weather that we're in right now, certain things like speed humps or any markings on asphalt require a certain ground temperature to remain permanent. And so a lot of those changes will have to happen during warmer weather or during the summer months. But we definitely are sticking to the schedule as much as possible when it comes to just like sign installations or easier things that don't necessarily have to have paint on the ground or any milling of pavement. So this is kind of a walkthrough of the new TSI dashboard. Most of you, I'm sure, like I said, are probably familiar with it. If not, this is what it is. We did change the URL. It's no longer that http arcg.is. We changed that to be, I think it's d./TSI dashboard. Very simple. You can also go to Google and just type in d.TSI dashboard, and it's typically the first thing that comes up. But this is the page that you will see. It's a new public tool that residents can use to access their requests and look at other requests. As you can see from the top, it goes by ward, by ANC, by SMD, and also by service request number. So anyone who's interested, who has that information available, they can put that into this system, and it'll tell them whether it's pending review, pending data collection, and all those the other tabs you see on the top with the numbers. And I'll walk you a little bit through those too. But this is great for us because it gives us the ability to give the power to the residents to see where we're at in these changes, and kind of eliminates that back and forth to know when things are going to be ready in the queue. So the first tab, as I mentioned, pending DDOT review, that just shows any existing TSI request that has been submitted through 311. As you can see from this particular screenshot, all those pink circles you see across the district are TSIs that someone, either an ANC commissioner or resident, has actually submitted. And this kind of gives a visual representation of not only how many that DDOT is focused on citywide, but also can give you a perspective on your own local communities of like what's in the queue, what we have. As you can see on the top, it says date initiated. You can kind of toggle through the different years in the calendar or dates in the calendar, when one was submitted, and kind of track that process there. So in pending data collection, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is TSIs that are currently or actively going through the data collection process. This is definitely done for speed tables or anything that requires a count of speed data. Always stop controls. There's a lot of data reports I have to go through for those particular things. And so you can click on, these little purple areas you see on the district. That will kind of show you which stage that particular TSI is in there. I didn't even mention the bar on the left side also shows the respective service request numbers that are attached to that particular address, and it tells you what ANC it's in also. So it's also a quick tool to look at. But this is the ones that are actively that our team has and are doing assessments on. Pending installation are ones that have been reviewed by our team and a work order has been made. That means it has gone through the service request process. The respective DDOT division has it in place. So if it's an always stop control, that means our traffic safety engineer division has completed that. They put a work order in for our field operations branch to make those changes. And so that's when pretty much when it reaches the installation phase, it's a guaranteed change for that particular request. Like you said, like I said before, on the map, you can indicate which ones of those are there. On the left side, you see pending field installation. It says what type when you hover over them, which kind of gives you a visual representation if it was a signage work, if it was a speed hump or speed camera or something like that. And then of course, finally closed service requests, exactly what it is. It's service requests that have been installed and that are closed. There might be a lag period based on, like I mentioned, like with weather. So a service request for a speed hump may be finished installation and may be closed because they know the timeline of when it's going to be put in. But those things, of course, they vary. But overall, this is kind of ones that have been in the system, and you can look at those that have been closed with TSI review and those without TSI review. And like I said, those show our rationale, why we did or why we didn't put one in. So these are some standard FAQs that we've already received and I've already received from the public as we've transitioned into this new model. The first one is like, just clarifying what happens to TSIs in the queue from the older system is very common. So those changes will have to follow the new model. There will be times where a TSI was closed back in like August. And then of course, we've reached into this new process and now we'll have to kind of be reinvigorated in. But if it's already something that we've discussed or have in the queue, that's something that's easy. But basically anything moving forward will follow this new model here. Number two is basically the difference between TSA, TSI is the questionnaire and the endorsement letter. We don't need those anymore. Really want to hone in on those things. I've still received some requests from residents with the questionnaire. And so I'm really making sure that they don't have to spend their time doing that. I also want to clarify the role of ANCs, which I know is probably going to be a majority of your questions tonight. We have moved into a prerogative and a procedure that we engage with you guys, of course, during the NOI process, notice of intent, and for anything that has to do with speed humps or standard TSI changes, we do notify you, the ANC, via email when a vertical traffic calming, such as a speed hump, is warranted. This notification isn't required by law. This is kind of just like our own, acknowledgement that we're doing for you guys to be informed and aware. But we've really truncated some of that to make sure that we can streamline some of these processes moving forward. Two other common ones is, why my TSI was closed with recommendations, but I don't see the work underway. That harks back to my point about the quarter system. And so, like I said, you can have a request that's put in that's closed, but won't be complete, of course, because either for a speed hump in warmer weather, it'll happen in the next quarter, or that just keeps us on track to manage our own expectations on when we can complete some of these things. So that's why that happens. There's another one that's why my TSI was closed without recommendations to make changes. That's another common one. Most of the time it's because there's a larger capital improvement project that's taking place in that area. Say, for example, Connecticut Avenue. If you put a TSI request to increase pedestrian visibility on Connecticut Avenue, most of those will probably be diverted because we're doing a big capital improvement project on the reversible lanes. And so many of those requests will be kind of incorporated within that larger project. And so those are a few examples you might get and residents might get as to why those things weren't done. Another reason would be that data collection shows that the existing conditions don't meet certain safety measures. And so we go through that data process to really assess to see what are feasible. And so, DDOT as an agency is really data driven. And we focus on, how the facts also, tell that story from the number side. And so we want to make sure that those are also things that we're keeping in close touch with. Finally, I just want to iterate the new ANC. Well, I say it's new. It's actually something that you guys have probably been doing before I even started DDOT. But we had a portal for ANC resolutions that any of you guys write or draft and sign can go to this URL and read, resolutions.anc.dc.gov. And that's kind of like our shared space where resolutions can kind of exist. We haven't really done that in the past few years. I do not know why. We just kind of transitioned back into doing this notice. but resolutions will be submitted. You'll get within 10 business days an acknowledgement letter from our team, and then in 60 business days you'll get a more in-depth response dependent on whatever the resolution was on. And so that is also another thing that we've done to keep our transparency and awareness for the public, and to know that we're being responsive and et cetera. And so if you need any help with the portal, you can access the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, and they can kind of walk you through that process. And that's all I got. My contact information is here for those who don't have it. I'm more than happy to engage further on the phone, via email, for the commissioners that I've spent a lot of time with, Commissioner Zeldin, Commissioner Gore. They can definitely speak to the fact that I've engaged with them for a multitude of different problems and issues, but I give the same amount of time with them that I do for everyone else. So I'm more than happy to take your questions, and thanks again for allowing me to present.
I'm going to stop sharing so that is it okay to stop sharing, everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
John, I think you had your hand up first.
Yes, this is a really, I think, better and more streamlined and more responsive system. So I appreciate that. When you send out, when a resident sends in a notice and you get back to the resident with an NOI, do you automatically carbon the ANC with that, or is it up to the resident to then take their case to the ANC? And what is the significance also about the ANC getting one of the NOIs? Do we then hold a community hearing about that, as we do for somebody who wants to put an addition onto their house when they're doing a zoning deal?
Yeah, we definitely, thank you, Commissioner, for that. We do add on ANC commissioners to that. We also add on, I think, members of the mayor's office, the MOKers as well. So, that chain is also in agreements of what's going on. We also encourage, if you want to have a kind of one-off meeting to discuss these things, that's fine. But we've also, you can just send comments my way, email them to me, and then within that 30-day window is when I'll send any resident concerns over to our engineers, and they take those into consideration depending on the change that's taking place.
But it would be up to us as to whether we would put one of these cases on our agenda for public comment.
Correct. Yeah. We provide you the information and for you to disseminate to the public at your leisure, whether that's through a listserv or anything like that, just so they're aware. But it's nothing formal where you have to, kind of put it to a committee and vote. And you can feel free to do that, but I know you guys only meet a couple times a month, so it probably would not be effective.
Only a couple times a month.
Connie?
I think that Michael was ahead of me, and so was Lisa.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You want
Michael,
me to go?
Michael, go ahead.
So, hey, Christian.
Hey, Commissioner, how you doing?
So here's my biggest problem with your system, which is that I'll give you a real example that you and I have been talking about for a long time. Western Avenue and my desire to slow traffic down on Western Avenue. And I put in multiple requests, as did Lisa, for stop signs on Western Avenue. I got a report back from them which says, thank you for your request for the intersection of Webster and Tennyson. So they didn't quite figure out that it's Western, but that's neither here nor there. And they said that a stop sign does not slow down traffic. According to the Street Department of the City of Spokane, Washington, and therefore your request is denied. End of my application. So because of the state of City of Washington, of Spokane, Washington, and their belief that stop signs don't slow down traffic, I think that's sort of hard to get your head around. The case is closed. What my big problem is not their answer, but there's no mechanism in what you just showed about how we can engage with them. For example, shouldn't there be a system in place where if they say, your request for a stop sign will not slow traffic because of the following reason. However, we'd be very interested in speaking to you about other effective ways to slow down traffic, speed camera, whatever it is. But there is no feedback loop. It's just closed. And then what do I have to do? I have to file a new TSI offering a new alternative, wait 6 months for a response. And I would invite you to speak with management. I know it's not up to you, that's a fatal flaw in your system, that there is no mutual opportunity to discuss and get to an agreed upon solution, so that your engineers come out for a day, or maybe they didn't even come out at all, because if they believe that stop signs don't slow traffic down, they don't even have to come and look at the street. They just say, hey, City of Spokane says no, so who are we to disagree with them? And so we don't even have to come visit your street. We're just going to say no to your stop sign. Thank you very much. Case closed. There's a problem there. And I don't know what the purpose of this conversation is today, but we're going to testify to this. Lisa's going to testify to this in the DDOT oversight hearings. But if you're taking back comment from us to your leadership, that's the comment that I'd like you to bring back from me. But I have to say one other thing, which is in our testimony, we give you a shout out because you've been doing great work and we really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you so much, sir. And it's really been a team effort. So I do want to hone on that. I can't do my job without you guys. So, but to answer your initial question, I'm on the statement. I don't want to speak for our engineers because they kind of have that technical jargon piece that, is assessing those areas. What I do want to say is that I know, for example, certain TSI requests won't fit the mold dependent on the classification of the roadway. And so Western Avenue, I know it's either a collector or a minor arterial road. And so always stop controls like stop signs can only be for local roads intersecting with other local roads. And so
that is not what they said in their answer. I can read you their answer, but they said that stop signs don't slow down. Stop signs don't decrease the speed of traffic. They didn't say this is an artery or some other thing.
Right.
They just said,
I will say it is not, stop signs are not traffic calming devices. They are traffic modifying tools. So they manage traffic, but they don't slow traffic down, if that makes sense.
Well, when a car comes to a stop, it's slower than when it's moving at 40 miles an hour on a 25-mile zone.
Correct. No, and I get that perspective. I think what the engineers are really honing on is that if you have a stop sign in place that is not fit for one, you will have a higher rate of people not obeying the sign, and then it becomes obsolete. And we've seen.
Then get a smart stop sign. Then include a smart stop sign, and those who don't obey it will get a ticket. I mean, these are the types of conversations that need to occur in order to get to a solution that the community knows way better than a 1 hour, if at all, visit by an engineer who's relying on a report from the city of Spokane, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
No, and I'll certainly take that feedback back to our team as well. I know that there's tons of internal things with 311 that are not very conducive with like releasing like information that is beneficial. But I do know that that's something that we are hoping to kind of close that loop on. And I know you and I have conversed a lot in different areas. And I don't want to say it, but like the best course of that action would just basically get in contact with me, and I can work something out to, talk to my internal staff. I know that's just an extra hurdle that I know if I was in your seat, I probably wouldn't want to do either. But well,
I've just taken that step. I'm telling you that your answer to Western Avenue is unsatisfactory.
Okay.
And Christian, the real issue is, as Michael put it very well, is engagement. And we need to be able to engage with DDOT so that they will help us and help the community find a solution, not just reject whatever is proposed, but find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that kind of engagement. It doesn't really depend on the specifics of any particular instance, but that engagement is lacking.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'm going to hammer that again. Engagement is lacking. And if you've ever seen me testify about Director Lott and DDOT, that is my main point. I don't care if it's sidewalks, if it's infrastructure improvement, if it's bike lanes, there's all kinds of issues. And we'll say this again too, Christian, we're not beating up on you. I know you're delivering the message and you're the representative here, but this is a serious issue. DDOT has been so divisive. Out of every agency that I've seen in this city government, DDOT is the most divisive agency among communities that I've ever seen anywhere that I've lived. And I've lived in Puerto Rico, Tennessee, all over, including umpteen years right here in Washington, D.C. And it's really upsetting. You know, we talked about area that both me and Michael had worked on. So he took Western Avenue. The project that we just talked about, and I can't think of the street, over there in Barnaby Woods.
Oh, yeah.
Where they had basically the big round of Worthington, I believe it was. You guys came back to us after we went over there, walked you guys through the project. It came back to us in the community that you guys had a proposal that is potentially taking away parking. Nobody said anything like that in the community. Nobody expected that, but that's the lack of community engagement. And I don't want to beat a horse. I really don't, Christian, but it is so frustrating to get, first of all, any movement out of DDOT, and you do a great job as a representative. You are outstanding. You do a great job. But when you guys make decisions like that, that impact people's lives without any notice, any conversation, any discussion with the community, that is where the buck stops. It's hard to get over that. And it's hard to trust the agency with anything that you're going to implement. I'm almost to the point I'm afraid to turn in a TSI project. I'm afraid to turn something in. Because now do I have to deal with the TSI and the community that's pissed off that they're going to lose parking in Barnaby Woods? That's insane. We can't take this no more, Christian. I'm not going to take it. And I'm not going to take it for my community. I'm going to continue to fight, scratch, shout, everything I can do until you guys get the message. You have to communicate with the community. And that's on everything you do, because your agency is that important. It's life, death, definitely, but it's also community engagement and people being able to live in their houses, enjoy their streets without this extra added frustration. And that's what this process is causing. So you think about everything you guys are trying to do, but then you put commissioners in a situation where we're scared to act. Now, if I lose parking for my residents over here in Barnaby Woods, what about all the other locations that don't have open wide? And you know how wide that Worthington Street is. What about the communities down, off of 17th Street, down in Ward 2, Ward 7 and 8, where they're much tighter? That's not acceptable. And no one said anything to us. Had we not communicated with you and you had not responded, we would not know. But the engineer came back with that recommendation. And I don't have a lot of faith in the engineers. And it's what Michael or whoever, Randy, said. And I've made policy on the national level. You can't push down policy without working with people to see how that policy impacts them. Policy is a headquarters job. I know that. I've done it for years. You've got to get out in the field and get boots on the ground to see how that impacts people. And that, Christian, is the message I hope you take back to DDOT, especially Director Lott.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. And we definitely try our best to make sure we have those alternatives in place. There are just certain circumstances where engineering will just not allow for certain of those type of things. But our dialogue definitely, I empathize with all the things you're saying. I really want to make sure that changes that are made permanent are done in a way that everyone is, has a voice on the table. And so,
but they're not, but they don't. And that's one prime example. My community over there in Barnaby Woods would have never known had we not asked. And they would have woken up just like my seniors on Chestnut Street one morning without parking. And nobody would have bothered to say anything to them. And then once it's done, just like my seniors on Chestnut Street still don't have parking in front of their houses. You guys don't go back and correct.
Honey?
Okay, Christian, I have a question about the dashboard. I was able to, with some commissioners through Vision Zero, have a conversation with Sharon Kirschbaum and John Thomas and some other people about the dashboard. And some of the suggestions that we made were already incorporated almost immediately, and others were not. But I think the main thing that I still don't exactly see when you showed the dashboard is the information to the commissioner. So a neighbor, a resident files a 311. I don't think any of those service requests shows the name of the requester because I was told for privacy reasons that they don't. So it makes it a little bit difficult. To me, if a commissioner puts in the request, typically it's because we've heard a lot from a lot of people and then we're putting in that request versus a single person putting in that request. So that's one question. Are you going to show who did it? Number one, who put the request in? Number two is it possible for us to see a location, let's say if just one block, as you said, or one intersection, to know how many previous requests were put in for that particular intersection? So we know how long has the problem been around, how many requests have been put in and what those are, because I don't think we can actually search for that. And number three is there a way to inform commissioners, not sort of in the 3/4 of the way through the process with the notice of intent, but rather right off the bat? So what I've asked for a year, I've only been a commissioner for a little over a year, but right from the start, I feel like with other agencies, with other district agencies, ABRA and so forth, we're given like a big spreadsheet and we kind of know, oh, these residences have applied for these permits, and they might affect me. It's given to us and then we have it. Whereas in the case of DDOT, I think some of the frustration comes from like, it goes into a 311 or it goes into like this big black hole in a way. Then you got to go find it. And it changes almost by the hour, right? Because you have those tabs, right? It's going through a process. So we really don't quite know. And because we don't know, and we're commissioners, we really can't speak to our constituents in any real intelligent way. Like, we have a problem with here and we can't even say because we actually don't know if a request is moving along. So I think the feedback back is you've taken the commissioners out, you've like made the process more streamlined, but because you've taken us out, that's one form of engagement we're out of. And then we're asked to play, which is what Commissioner Higgins was asking you, on the notice of intent with only 30 days without even knowing at the beginning. So I think we need a better way of knowing the scope of all of the 311s that have come our way so we can track, we know, and then we know what's coming up. I think right now we don't. And I also said to DDOT's leadership that I felt like with the engineers when they go, it doesn't take any time for DDOT, for the contractor, for the engineers to say, I'm going to come on this day at this hour, not for us to change the time, but for them to say they're coming so that if we wanted to join in, we could. Like to me, that just makes it better. Right now, it's a black hole. They do their job, they say what should be done, and then we're like, what do they say? Did they even, like, they're just reading that little description. Do they really know? So I feel like that part of the process is not great right now, and it's frustrating. So those are a few. I have others which I'll convey later, but these are the main ones I have after your presentation.
No, that's useful. And feel free to also send me that whole list too. Just for my own awareness. I keep Kelly, my manager, our team, like aware of like kind of the feedback we've been receiving. And so that would be definitely very useful for us. I know the dashboard is still in its infancy stage. I think there's definitely our performance management team is moving into that direction of incorporating a little bit more of a user-friendly mode to it, and how you can actually track, service request numbers by kind of a more integrative sense. I can't speak to that, and I'm not sure what a timeline is. I just know I'm aware that that's something that they're looking at. And I'm glad that they were able to make some of those changes that you recommended when you met with them. But it's definitely evolving. We understand there's going to be a lot of hurdles and kind of this, where do we fit in with this role in the beginning stages? But the feedback like this enables us to, a year down the line, make it close to perfect that we want. But I can definitely, for any specific questions that you mentioned, I can just refer them to the performance management team to see if they have a timeline of when they're going to make these changes, and kind of provide that so you're aware and transparent of what we're doing on our end.
Yeah, we will have I'm sorry, Peter, we will have another conversation with John Thomas. That's been promised by him to the
cool.
Vision Zero subset group. And so I expected it last month. I think it's now, you guys are probably busy, but I expect it to be soon. But that these kinds of questions, these things need to be addressed. This idea of engagement and how to engage and what the purpose of engagement is, I think is really important.
No, and I appreciate you for bringing that up too.
Peter?
Let me see mine. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So listen, just so I understand this, so I've just pulled up the pending DDOT reviews for ANC, and right at the top is 3700 Military Road Northwest, the block I live on. Is this supposed to tell me, so I don't know who filed it, and I don't know what it's about, or presumably it's about the intersection. I don't know anything. Am I supposed to look somewhere else? I've clicked around and all I find is all required information has been received from the resident. DDOT is reviewing this information. Is there something I'm supposed to click on that tells me, is this a sidewalk issue? Is this a pavement issue, a pothole, or what?
Right. I think the icon should be different depending on what the issue is. But no, I'm saying, like, I think if you hover over the icon on the left-hand side, you should say it, like, what type of request that is. If that's
the icon. I mean, you mean that little purple circle, or where I'm hovering? I've clicked on everything I could find. I mean, I don't see that it brings up any other information other than this statement, which, by the way, is the same statement for every single one of the 11 service requests that it lists for our ANC. So I mean, I don't see that I have any other information other than an address and a number.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I do know that's one of the areas that our team is working to. I think it addresses what Connie was saying, where you can kind of look at a TSI number and it will tell you what kind of request is in the queue. But when I go to and this is of course something we can also chat one-on-one too. I don't want to.
Yeah, why don't we do that since?
But yeah, feel free, Commissioner. We can kind of talk offline. If I need, I can see, because I need to visualize also what you're looking at too. If you want to.
I mean, I think the permissions are different. I mean, obviously, when I'm on here now, I mean, when you go in as a commissioner, you can't really see the details of what happened in your area. Yeah. It's a permission issue. There's nothing to talk about on it. Mm-hmm. We don't have permission to see that view, and we should.
And Christian, if you could communicate to your management that we can be an asset for you. I mean, this is not something where we're fighting DDOT. We can be an asset. And so if you give us the information, we can be helpful.
Yeah. I think the thing I definitely understood when I was in that smaller meeting was that DDOT like created this dashboard, but from your point of view. And when some of us users were engaging with DDOT, I think it was very clear that users use it differently. Like how we would use a dashboard would be very different than how you might use a dashboard for yourself to track certain things. And I think that conversation is ultimately so important. This is why a lot of software companies, they have beta users, right? So that they understand what's going on. And I think this is what we're trying to convey, because we feel frustrated, but it's not, we feel frustrated because the process is not exactly right. And it's because the perspective is not the same. So if we can have a more shared perspective, we're going to get, it's going to feel better, I think, for everyone. Yeah. So that's, I think, what we're trying to say.
We've also, Christian, been having, or myself and Chuck Elkins, the commissioner in 3, I don't want to miss
3D.
3D, thank you, have been having just these very conversations, just one-on-one with some of the, DDOT leadership, where we've been saying, use us as an asset and let us help you with some of these issues. I mean, it's just a good example of that. I mean, you can't come up with a good product in your own hyperspace. Just can't. You don't have all the viewpoints.
I will say DDOT is not the only agency that's at fault in that regard. There are other agencies too.
Well, I think most of the government is, but some of them are at the top of the list.
Okay, is there anything more we need to keep?
Let him go. Let him go. Let him go.
I'm here for
Be
you.
free.
No, it's fine. I'm here to, for any questions you have. Also offline as well too. I know we, if anything else comes to mind, of course, I'm always an asset, but I do want to say this has not only been great for myself to present, but also the feedback I've received is one of the best things that I appreciate about coming to these meetings, is that I get to really hear from you all the perspectives and whatnot. And having that as an advocate for you as part of my job is to also make sure that your voices are being heard and vice versa. Your commission in general has been a stellar kind of poster child of how that's supposed to be. So kudos, of course, to all of you to make my job a little bit easier in terms of how to navigate some of these hurdles that I do know are a little daunting. So I appreciate your patience.
Thank you for sticking around for so late. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
No problem. You have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay.
Do we need to have these reports, these updates?
No.
Thank you.
What thing? What?
The small area plan and the
Oh, I do want to make one announcement on the SAP. I think I should, right?
Okay.
It's their open house.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead and make the announcement.
Okay.
There are 5 people.
Yeah.
I guess it's recorded. I don't know. Okay, so listen. So
and I watch it.
The Office of Planning has decided to add another activity, which is an open house on Wednesday, February 23rd from 3 to 7 p.m., 4 hours long at the Chevy Chase Library. This is in direct response to the commission asking for more time for the community to engage since the community design workshop seemed too short, too brief. And so they'll do this, and it'll be in a gallery format where community members can view presentation boards about the small area planning process, a summary of what they've heard so far, illustrative graphics of potential growth along the Connecticut Avenue corridor, and draft design principles and guidelines. It's intended to facilitate, this open house is intended to facilitate in-person conversations between community members about the future of the Chevy Chase neighborhood, and OP staff will be available throughout the meeting room to describe the presentation boards and answer any questions. No need to register, just drop in February 23rd, Wednesday from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Chevy Chase Library upstairs meeting room. And we will be there. I think ANC commissioners will be there, as well as the community advisory committee members will be there, because we want to hear what you have to say and we want to try to facilitate any conversations. Please go to publicinput.com/Chevy Chase for more information. Thank you.
Okay. I think we should just go directly to the testimony that we have to approve tonight, because we need to do that for the hearings come out. Is that okay with everyone?
That's okay, but please remember the American City Diner letter afterwards.
Yes, you're exactly right. Okay.
I think it can be quick.
I know, we got a long night. What I would suggest is that we've gone through, all of us have seen the DDOT testimony.
Yes.
We basically just discussed it all,
Yeah.
a lot of it. I would suggest that we just vote on whether we want to adopt it or not.
Yes, and it's also online. I uploaded it. It's on the meeting information page. So
Okay, is there a motion by Lisa, I guess, or Michael, whoever was the drafter?
I move that we approve the DDOT testimony that Lisa Gore will be giving.
I second.
All those in favor?
Can I abstain?
Okay, the DC water testimony is the same thing. We've been through this. Everybody's had a chance to work on it. I move that we adopt the DC water testimony for the commission. Second. All those in favor? 7-0. Boy, we're really efficient.
yeah, that is also uploaded, and it's also on the meeting information page.
Right.
Just letting you know.
So, and I don't think we've got any, Connie is still going to draft the Office of Planning testimony, and we're going to add that to the agenda for Wednesday night's meeting.
Thursday night's meeting, right? It's Thursday. Is it Thursday or Wednesday? Is it the 16th? Wednesday. Okay.
Wednesday.
The 16th.
Yeah, right. And with unanimous consent, we can add that to the agenda, even though it's a special meeting. So I think that we should do that.
Good.
Okay.
Our next meeting is Wednesday, just to be sure, right?
Yeah, we don't have enough meetings, you know.
I just don't know. I'm gonna miss you guys between now and then.
Listen, I've got 4 or 5 meetings. I've got a call with you tomorrow.
I've got CNN at 5 a.m. So
Randy,
Okay.
Connie, one question on the OP draft. Are we putting anything in there about, one thing I would like to add in there is the racial equity lens or racial lens that they were, and I don't know if I'm wording that right, taking it right out of language. That OP, no, that's a comp plan, right? Yeah, okay. What are we saying about OP?
I'm going to talk about small area plan and how to do them. Like this is the performance oversight. So I want to give them some feedback about small area plans because they have ones coming up already, like the Wisconsin one, the Friendship Heights one has already begun. So I want to give them some feedback about what would have been helpful and sort of say that basically.
Lessons learned, essentially.
Yeah,
Well,
lessons learned. Yeah.
We can still include in there or have some comment. They're supposed to be coming up right with the procedure, I guess, in conjunction with Office of Attorney General, which is kind of looking at that, how to implement the racial lens in terms of the amendment on the comp plan. You know what I'm talking about?
OAG is about public interest, right? And so, anything that comes up, they could look at it from all kinds of lenses, right? So home, like affordability, everything.
This is in the comp plan, and OP is supposed to be administering that aspect of the comp plan. So what I'm saying is we can shake that out and add that as something that we're urging them to do because they have not done it yet. And
okay, so let me make sure that that's in there. We can talk offline, make sure that we get that right.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. That's it?
All right.
Wait.
Peter?
What? Yeah, can I go?
American City Diner.
American City Diner. Look, there have been waves of resident complaints about this. And Connie has gotten many, I have gotten loads. We sort of rattle the cage or see if we can get the leasing agent each time. There are a group of residents, including a woman who's just moved into the neighborhood who seems really hell-bent on doing something about this. And I think that's great. In the course of thinking about writing a letter, I pinged Randy, and Randy found this very interesting fact about American City Diner, which the property had been on an exempt list, so it could not be penalized as a blighted property. it's no longer on the exempt list. And so the reason I want you to approve this letter is I think we ought to move fast, get a DCRA to get an inspector down there. It's hard for me to believe the inspector would miss the fact it's a blighted property and get them to tell OTR to put these people on a higher tax rate because they haven't kept the property up, they haven't leased it. In addition, this issue of the billboard has come up again. I think the analysis by the attorney whose statement was posted on the listserv is compelling, and Randy has raised the issue of whether there's an exemption, and there is an exemption for advertising the sale or lease of property. The problem is that what the sign says is we want to sell or lease you this billboard for a commercial message. And that purpose is not covered by the exemption. And arguably that doesn't comply with the billboard regulations for a commercial message. So I'd ask you to approve this letter to DCRA, asking them to do two things. One, get an inspector down there pronto to look at this as a blighted property, and two, review the issue of the legality of the message that's up on that billboard right now, which is this could be you could be home now if you own this billboard. No, you could have your commercial message up here.
Is there a way that that we can ask whether or not this billboard should even be permitted? What are the rules about billboards?
Well, that particular billboard has a historic designation, and there was graffiti on it last year twice, and they tried to like wash it off or whatever, and then it happened again, and then we saw that big ad over it. So I think it was like a way to like just maybe protect it. I really don't know what's behind it, but that was something that kept going on and on.
The billboard is a historic designated.
Yeah, it does.
thing?
That art has, it is. That's what.
Art was not historic. It was just art. It was deemed to be art. And that's why it was protected. But that has a long history. And there's lots of controversy about that when it originally went up. But right now we need to just focus, I think, on what's there right now. And whether or not something else could be there, we can leave for another day.
Okay, sorry.
But the other thing I would suggest, Peter, is that you do file, there is a form to fill out for reporting vacant and blighted property. In addition to writing to the director about this, you fill out the form too. And as I pointed out, we really need to get this to Phil Mendelson, because Mendelson's hot on this topic. He will focus on it.
Okay, we'll copy to him, and Connie has suggested copying to the DCRA liaison, who I would just say is a pretty enthusiastic young man, Isaac Bouquet. We will do both.
And the other person to copy is the committee of the whole's staff person who works on vacant blighted properties. I sent her email address.
Okay, good.
Blaine, I think.
Will do.
And then the Chevy Chase Main Street, even though you've been talking to them, I think that they should be CC'd because
and if there's anything I can do, I mean, I've talked to Phil a lot about this, and so I can.
Well, most immediately, could you send me where I find the form?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
In the morning.
Okay. I move that we approve this letter to DCRA.
I second.
All in favor?
Hey, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
It's right next to the TSI form here.
Yeah, it's what step I come in at.
Okay. Peter, you want to move the minutes?
Oh, yeah. I moved the minutes for both January 24th and the special meeting February 1st. I've taken the comments of the edits of Randy and Connie, I move that we approve them. Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. Treasurer report, John?
I sent a memo around to everybody, so I hope they've read it. The major action I need tonight is for the commission to approve the quarterly financial report, which I also sent around. Just briefly, the report, at the end of the report, we have $270.57, which reconcile with our bank account. But since then, we've written some checks, and especially for the two grants. So our current actual balance is $26,680.65. And under the OANC allotment program, we're probably going to be getting another $18,000 through the year in incremental amounts between May and October. So that gives you kind of an idea of where we stand financially. I had some other information about DOES and some forms and so forth that we need to, they're not anything we need to vote on, but I would like to move approval of the quarterly report.
Second.
All those in favor?
I got a question on this.
0.
This is just where are we at in terms of like say budget? What do we have in terms of money that we can use towards grants? We got a pretty big.
We have a pretty well. We have
balance here.
Yeah, I'll double check on that because I talked to Don about that too, because we had some little different numbers. I think we can actually we can adjust our budget any time in the year that we need to, depending upon circumstance. So I'll check that out.
One
Because
thing,
with our, with the 18th, I think I had starting out around $40,000 for the whole year for the commission, and 18 plus 26 would take us to 44. And I put in some extra money for grants, but I don't recall exactly what it was. So I'll check it out, Lisa, and get back.
Okay.
and we haven't been spending the money on an executive assistant. So
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to reserve some money for that
Yeah.
person,
We can,
And-
which we'll take up next time.
we may need to increase the salary and use some of that money to
Exactly.
make sure we get a good executive assistant.
But
But
can I just ask one question about that? Where are we in terms of applicants? Because I've not seen any resumes or what.
John and I have to get together this week. Last week we could not, but we have maybe 6.
We
And
got a motion on the floor, you guys.
sorry, we voted for the treasurer's report, didn't we?
no, we didn't. We haven't. voted.
No.
I put my hand up.
All those in,
Lisa had a discussion, so.
all those in favor? 7-0. Okay, now we have voted.
Now you
Okay.
can talk.
John, was there one more check? You had a check that needed to be approved individually, I think.
No, I mentioned that in the pipeline is a Zoom reimbursement to you plus the 2 grants.
Okay,
That
all right.
took us down to the 26,000.
Okay. Next meeting, next regular meeting is the 28th.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it.
I'm still trying to find out whether we're going to hear from the Lisner home. Then now the guy who's running that is running for council.
Yeah.
Well, he may be busy.
Not for me.
Lisa's here. I mean, he ought to be able to get
Yeah.
here.
You got that right. Come on. I can get here if he can
What
get
kind of
here.
excuse is that?
Let me just get through this. Come on, guys. We also will have some additional testimony to vote on for oversight hearings, and DCPS, I think, is really the only one that's going to be up on the 28th. And then we will have presentations from the Ward 3 and Ward 4 redistricting task forces. I've asked them either that the 28th or March 14th. But those are the things that I have on my list. If anybody has anything else, let me know. Okay.
Okay.
11 o'clock.
Okay, let's.
Hours.
On Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day.
Unbelievable.
We adjourn.
Love you all.
Love you all.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure.
Oh,
Night.
got it.